Right. Welcome to the June 18, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. Today, we have Pastor Carrie Amos from the Burnt Hickory Baptist Church to lead us in invocation, and Officer Roth from our Cobb Police Department leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So those that are willing and able, please stand.
Thank you. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for allowing us to be here today for this meeting. I pray that decisions will be made here today will be for the good of the people. Bless each one of these commissioners. May they have wisdom, Lord, for the betterment of our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Okay, just want to help out some people here this morning. If you're here for Z35, Z39, or Z41, or OB30 or OB34, I doubt seriously we're going to get to hear these cases before 10 o'clock. So you're welcome to stay and listen to Democracy in Action here. But if you're here for any one of those cases and you want to go out and take a coffee break, go across to Sugar Cakes, spend some lost dollars. I'll make sure that your case is heard, but I just want to let you know that we have a full agenda this morning with lots of cases that will require the full hearing, and I just want to help you out in your life because I know you're all very busy. So with that, John? No, John, you can't leave. I'm sorry. You can't leave. Okay. Everybody's trying to leave.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
Boy,
Good morning, everybody.
tighten my tie
Today's
here.
hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When your case is called, we ask that the applicant stand and raise their hand to show that they are in attendance. Then we're going to call to see if there's anyone opposed to the case. We would ask the opposition that they also stand and raise their hand so they can be counted for the official record. After recognizing the applicant and any opposition, the applicant and any opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant will testify first, and then if there's any opposition, they would testify second. Each side gets 10 minutes to state their case and concerns. There's not a rebuttal process, so please convey all your information to the Board of Commissioners within your 10-minute time frame. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on a case, we ask that you coordinate with each other about the points you're going to talk about because each side only gets 10 minutes and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the board would start to discuss the matter at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more people to come back to the front for questions or comments. Then the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the case at hand. Mr. Chairman, board, and audience, there are two cases on today's printed agenda which have been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z37 of 2018, Winchester Parkway LLC. That case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard. Second case is rezoning case Z77 of 2018, Ackworth Baker Grove LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been held or continued and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z71 of 2018, Pope and Land Enterprises Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the August 6, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z71 of 2018 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z82 of 2018, IGBO Union Atlanta. This case was continued by the staff until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z82 of 2018 will not be heard today. Special land use permit case 13 of 2018, Kennesaw Jewish Center Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the August 20th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So SLUP 13 of 2018 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z12 of 2019, Fatima Goodman, Codges 401K Trust. This case was continued by the staff to the August 20th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z12 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z31 of 2019, AIM Freight Trucking Logistics LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 16th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z31 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z33 of 2019, the DeVille Group of Companies Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z33 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z34 of 2019, Aileen F. Paisley and Sherry Lynn Wade. This case was continued by the staff until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z34 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z37 of 2019, Komorebi Holdings, this case, LLC, this case was continued by the Planning Commission until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z37 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z38 of 2019, Joseph M. Thomas and Cynthia Aaron Thomas. This case was continued by the staff until the July 16th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z38 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z40 of 2019, Larry Herman. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z40 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z43 of 2019, Embry Development Company, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z43 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z44 of 2019, Curley Family Homes, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z44 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z45 of 2019, WS Hotels, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the September 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z45 of 2019 will not be heard today. SLEP 4 of 2019, A1 Auto Cores LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP 4 of 2019 will not be heard today. Other business number 35, Pogue Shopping Centers LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 16th Planning Commission zoning hearing. And other business number 36, Pogue Shopping Center LLC. This case was also continued by the staff until the July 16th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business number 36 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman and Board, there are two more cases that I got late notice on that the applicant would like to continue. The first case is rezoning case Z24, Cheryl Upshaw. Mr. Chairman and Board, the applicant does need to continue this case. There is some more work that needs to be done on it. So the staff would ask the board to continue this case.
There is some issues about the land boundaries, so I make a motion to continue Z24 until our next zoning hearing.
Second.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. And next is other business number 34, Quick Trip Corporation. Mr. Chairman and Board, this case does need to be continued. There's some more work that the applicant needs to do regarding some staff comments. So the staff would ask the board to continue other business number 34 to the July hearing date.
Commissioner Burrow?
Yes. Okay, yes. We have a few more things to work out on the traffic plan, so I'll make a motion that we continue OB 34.
Second discussion, call the question. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phones. If the phones ring, they do interfere with the broadcast and the presentations. Any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 more was made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information about this requirement is located on the table in the back of the room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by this board at their discretion. With that, Mr. Chairman and Board, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Please.
Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for June 18th, 2019. Rezoning case Z28 of 2019, Ellen Wood, MCRE LP, request rezoning from PSC to CRC for the purpose to allow an assembly hall for special events in land lot 156 of the 18th District. The property is located on the southwest side of Mapleton Parkway, south of Lynn Circle. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the CRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on February 7, 2019, with the following changes. The middle entrance from Mapleton Parkway be removed and 5 parking spaces to be added. B, the parking spaces adjacent to the right-of-way to be adjusted to provide right-of-way dedication and the building of the multi-use trail. C, 14 parallel spaces to be striped along the western property line to the rear of the building. D, the rear pavement to be marked for one-way traffic only. 2, letter from Ms. Lauren M. Hansford dated May 29, 2019, not otherwise in conflict. 3, letter from the Mapleton Improvement Coalition dated May 28, 2019, not otherwise in conflict. The capacity of the Mapleton Banquet Hall to be limited to 132 people from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily due to the limited parking. No shopping center tenant or other than that of Mapleton Banquet Hall to have regular business hours between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. 6, all events at the Mapleton Banquet Hall to end by 1 a.m. No events may start before 6 a.m. Number 7, all tenants to adhere to the Cobb County noise ordinance. 8, if the applicant provides a shared parking easement with the property to the south, the zoning division manager may modify the capacity from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. based on the additional parking available. 9, all dumpsters to be located inside a dumpster enclosure that meets Cobb County development standards and Mapleton Parkway design guidelines. The enclosure shall not be constructed with standard concrete block unless it is faced with brick. All enclosures to have steel gates. Number 10, an 8-foot privacy fence to be constructed along the western property line. The fence shall be a heavy-duty solid construction to help reduce sound intrusion to the adjacent residential parcels. The fence shall meet the Mapleton Parkway design guidelines. 11, reduce the minimum number of parking spaces to 92 while the Mapleton Banquet Hall is a tenant. 12, variances only for the existing condition, no variances upon redevelopment. 13, the district commissioner may approve minor modifications except for those that A, increase the overall building square footage, B, cause a reduction in the size of an approved buffer, C, increase the height of a building, D, change that is in conflict with an express stipulation or condition of zoning, or E, requires a variance or violates Cobb County ordinance. 14, staff comments, recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z28 of 2019? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Chairman, I have some changes.
Sure.
Stipulations.
Okay.
I would like to replace stipulation number 5 with the owner agrees to include a provision in any new leases or future lease renewals prohibiting those tenants from operating during the hours of 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. We'll strike stipulation number 6 and modify stipulation 10 to provide that the fence may include a wood fence that meets Mapleton Parkway design guidelines. Thank you.
Okay. My only question is does the Maple Improvement Coalition have any problem with your change of the stipulations? Is anybody here from, is Robin? I think I saw Robin here. You're fine with it? Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, thanks.
Next case is rezoning case Z42 of 2019, Chance Powers Ferry LLC. Request rezoning from O&I to RRC for the purpose of a mixed-use development in land lots 1008 and 1009 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Shadowwood Parkway, south of Paris Ferry Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the RRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated May 29, 2019, which includes Exhibit A and Exhibit B, with the following changes. A, section titled Overall Development, item number 3, add to the end, lighting to be shielded and hooded with particular attention paid to any light escaping vertically from the project. B, section titled Overall Development, item number 8, delete in its entirety in place with compliance with all Cobb County staff comments, recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. C, section titled Overall Development, item number 16, add to the end. This stipulation supersedes the depiction of the sidewalk on the reference site plan. Number 2, applicant to register security cameras with the Cobb County Police Camera Registration Program. 3, office component be limited in use to office only. Office size limited to 20,000 net square feet. 4, architectural treatment consistent with the exterior treatment of the residential component to be applied to the parking deck in a manner determined by the developer and approved by the district commissioner. Variances listed in the zoning division comments, fire department comments and recommendations, stormwater management division comments and recommendations, water and sewer division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezone case Z42 of 2019? There's one person opposed, Mr. Chairman, that's the school board representative. Mr. Charles Sprayberry, do you want to have a brief comment by them?
Mr. Chairman, I would rather, instead of pulling this, I mean, there is no opposition from anyone in the community. So I think we all know what Mr. Sprayberry is going to say. If we could just let him make his comment
Sure.
and then move forward.
Okay. Please, Mr. Sprayberry.
Because I think I know what he's going to say, and then I'll kind of respond.
I'm Charles Sprayberry with the Cobb County Board of Education.
Morning.
Thank you, Chairman Boyce and Commissioners. Approval of this petition will cause concern as it will result in an impact on the enrollment of a school already over capacity, East Cobb Middle School. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just kind of a comment about that. One of the things that I've tried to do with some of these apartments that have been approved, instead of the normal practice of approving a lot of 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, most of the apartments are 1 bedrooms, which,
True.
as we've seen with Brumby's enrollment and also East Cobb's, has not contributed significantly to the enrollment. And so this development is the same, where the majority of the units in it are 1 bedrooms. So in effort to try to address your concerns.
Right. I appreciate it, and I will take that information back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one other question?
Sure.
This East Cobb Middle School, isn't that the new school that was built next to Brumby?
Yes, it is.
And we built a new school that's already over capacity?
Sometimes that happens, sir. Yes, sir.
Sometimes it's one of these is now.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any objections to leaving it on consent? We're good. All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay, next case is rezoning case Z46 of 2019, MD William Inc. Request a rezoning from NS to O9 for the purpose of a child daycare center in land lot 160 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north side of Mars Hill Church Road, west of Aqua Duas Road. The Planning Commission recommends deletion to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received at the PC zoning hearing on June 4th, 2019. Child daycare center use only. No external expansion of the building past the existing building footprint unless approved by the Board of Commissioners as an other business item. Landscaping and external property maintenance to meet the Cobb County requirements. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Site plan review comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Kelly Morton, attorney for the opposition, will reach a resolution and provide it to the zoning division manager prior to the Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. And that did not happen, Mr. Chairman. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z46?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to come up to the microphone, please. Good morning.
Good morning, Attorney Kelly Morton. I'm actually here on a personal capacity, so I'm not here to oppose the actual rezoning. However, I do want to address an issue that the county allowed on this property when it was constructed.
We're gonna, hold on one second, ma'am.
Okay.
We're gonna go ahead and leave this on for today's agenda, but we're gonna move it to the regular agenda. Okay, make sure you have the full opportunity for the 10 minutes if you need it, all right, and the full discussion with the board.
Okay, so we're going to take Z46 off consent, Robin. Okay, thank you. Moving into land use permits on the consent agenda, LUP 12 of 2019, Margarita ZAZUETA request a land use permit for the purpose of a beauty salon in the house in land lot 231 of the 17th district. The property is located on the south side of Windy Hill Road, west of Charles Rogers Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on February 5th, 2019. Hours of operation from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. Business only to be conducted in the house to the west facing Windy Hill Road. Allowance for one sign on the Windy Hill Road side. Sign to be a maximum of 20 square feet with the district commissioner approving the final size. Applicant to live in the house to the east, which faces Charles Rogers Road. Maximum of 2 employees. Staff comments, recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 12 of 2019? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 13 of 2019, Sandy CLOUGH requests a land use permit renewal for the purpose of an artist studio storing art prints in land lot 336 of the 20th district. The property is located on the west side of Trail Road, west of Midway Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. No signs, no on-street parking, no outdoor storage, and 2 seasonal employees. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to land use permit number 13 of 2019? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Moving on to other business cases on the consent agenda. Other business case number 31 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment and approval of the site plan for Life Storage, Inc. regarding rezoning application number 299 of 1986 for property located on the north side of Clay Road, west of Austell Road, in land lot 1140 of the 19th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Proposed site plan contained in the other business packet with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. District commission to approve the building architecture. Project is subject to plan review. Fire department comments contained in the other business packet. And all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 31? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
I'd like to add a stipulation that the district commissioner is to approve final building architecture inclusive of color, material, and elevation.
Okay. Other business item number 32 of 2019 is to consider a site plan amendment for J.P. Morgan Chase Bank N.A. regarding rezoning application number 231 of 1986 for property located on the west side of Mars Hill Road, north of Brookstone Drive in land lot 225 of the 20th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Proposed site plan contained in the other business packet with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. No neon lighting or any colored accent lighting on the building or drive-through. District commissioner to approve the final building architecture and landscape plan. Project is subject to plan review. Fire department comments contained in the other business packet, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 32? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And lastly, other business item number 33 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment and site plan amendment for Racetrack Petroleum Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z10 of 2011 for property located on the east side of Austell Road, on the north side of Wendy Hill Road, on the west side of Arcos Drive, and land lots 14 and 59 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Letter from Mr. Parks Huff dated June 12, 2019, which includes the site plan and the elevations. Project to follow the Austell Road design guidelines with the district commissioner approving the final architectural design. Project is subject to plan review. Department of Transportation comments contained in the other business packet, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 33 of 2019? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda. Mr.
Added
Chairman.
stipulation for that. Just emphasis that district commissioners to approve final building and canopy architecture.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised. Discussion? Call the question? Passes 5-0. Okay, John?
Sir. All those folks that are on consent agenda, you're free to leave, but please leave quietly because we're still going to have a hearing for other cases going on. Okay, moving into the continued cases to be heard, first case is rezoning case Z70 of 2018, the Wasserman Group LLC, request rezoning from R30, R20, and GC to RM8 and RSL non-supportive for the purpose of age-restricted of an age-restricted residential community in land lots 40 and 75 of the 20th District. The property is located on the west side of Ackworth Dallas Road, south of Cedar Crest Road. The applicant's representative is present. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z70? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there's 14 people here opposed to rezoning case Z70. Can I also get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z70? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there's 11 people here in support. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
I just want to encourage those that are going to be speaking in opposition to make sure that we're going to divide your time appropriately so that one person doesn't speak for the whole 10 minutes. Want to make sure we get as much public input as possible. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Moore here on behalf of the applicant, Wasserman Group, and the property owners in this application for rezoning. On your screen, for those that can see it as well in the audience, you see that the property that we are discussing here today and proposing for rezoning is highlighted. That property is a total of 21.18 acres, located on Ackworth Dallas Road, just south of its intersection with Cedar Crest. And you can see from the overhead that intersection of Cedar Crest Road, which is at the top of your screen. The larger road going down the middle of your screen is Cobb Parkway, Highway 41. This property is currently zoned, two pieces of it are zoned general commercial. The remainder of the property is zoned R20 and R30. And the entirety of this property, 21 acres, is included and shown on your future land use map as being within a neighborhood activity center. So the entire 21 acres is within the neighborhood activity center at this location. A little bit about the surrounding area. It's dominated by a couple of things. Number one is the development of Governor's Town Club. It is there to the north off Cedar Crest, and you can see the NRC zonings, and that's a public shopping center and related retail uses that have been done well and used quite successfully by the surrounding community. In addition, you'll see the GC zone properties that front Cobb Parkway, US 41, dead across the street from our property on Ackworth Dallas Road, conveniently known as the flea market, because that's what that property is and has been for many, many, many years, is the flea market that operates on that property. What we're proposing for this 21 acres is a total of 73 homes to be rezoned to RSL, Residential Senior Living, for an age-restricted development at this location. A little bit about the history of this application, because I think that's very important and vitally important for your consideration. Initially, this application concerned the 21 acres, but in addition, a total of 68 acres. About 45 acres, 46 acres adjacent to this property was included in the initial application last year in 2018 for a total development of 248 homes as an age-restricted senior community. After many meetings with community and area residents, as well as meetings that we had and hearings before the Planning Commission, this application and proposal evolved, truly did evolve. And the process and the rezoning process was dynamic in that sense that we were receiving comments, and importantly, the Wasserman Group was receiving comments and hearing those comments and responding to those comments in terms of their proposal. The remainder of that property that I was just discussing, the 40-plus acres, is in the VLDR, very low-density residential on your land use plan. The 21 acres is in the Neighborhood Activity Center. And one of the concerns that had been expressed to us all along was that development of the entire 68 acres, as we were proposing, was not consistent with very low-density residential and not consistent with some of the large lot development and large lot homes that are in the surrounding area, including the adjacent subdivision to our south. What we did was continue to work with them, continue to move this, and continue to be dynamic. The Wasserman Group was in their application process and did that. And ultimately, our application is simply the 21 acres that are in the activity center as RSL for a total of 73 age-restricted homes, which is entirely consistent with your land use plan. That remaining acreage is zoned R20 and R30, and presumably will be developed for septic lots because that acreage cannot be served by sanitary sewer by gravity flow, only a lift station. So that remaining property will be developed as is, large lots, septic tank lots, just like some of the surrounding area is. So what was achieved was a real balance, a balance between recognizing the activity center that's at this location, as well as recognizing that the surrounding area has large lots, has septic lots, and this remainder of this property would be developed like that in the future, according to those rules. Turning now to the site plan itself, I just want to familiarize you with what we've proposed and the quality of what the Wasserman Group has proposed at this location. Thank you. Here we go. Turning to the site plan itself, Ackworth Due West Road is here. Again, that intersection with Cedar Crest is just to the north, one parcel away, where you have the existing and developed retail uses. This property is proposed for RSL, age restricted, 55 years of age and over. One of the dynamic portions of this site plan that you can see is the use of a variety of home building types. That is, these would be single detached homes as well as duplex homes and triplex homes. That adds a variety, and I'll show you those, and you can see the real village concept that's being proposed by the Wasserman Group for what we think will be an outstanding development. In addition, what you see as part of this plan are the extensive amenities, clubhouse, pool, pickleball courts, as well as open space park areas that provide for walking trails throughout, taking advantage of the natural resources that are part of this property as well. This property has a single entrance here on Ackworth Dallas Road, and would provide and meet the RSL code in that regard as to its building type, its age restrictions, as well as to its rental limitations that are contained within the RSL ordinance itself. If you could. Next, he's going to help me with this, and so that you can really get a flavor and a vision for what the Wasserman Group is looking for here. And as he flips through these, what you'll notice is that these are the proposed elevations for the different home types that will be a part of this development. You can see great care has gone into specifically how these will look, how they will be felt when you drive or when you live in this community, to provide for a variety of house types. But there's a consistent theme. You would drive through this community and feel at home. You would drive through this community as a senior and be welcome there, feel secure, and you're living in a beautiful space. And that's the vision the Wasserman Group has for this property. And we believe that the zoning application of this proposal, likewise, now being entirely consistent with your land use plan, is also a great use of this property, especially given what's going on in the surrounding area as a whole and the development pressures that have occurred. What this does now is, as I said before, and the word I really want to focus on, is it creates a real balance. It balances what comes with a neighborhood activity center by inserting a use and by developing a use that will be consistent with that area, both in terms of quality, in terms of appearance, and in terms of intensity of use, where the remaining parts of the acreage would be developed in the future consistent with neighborhoods that are also there in the future. One of the issues that has been brought forth, and you will need to determine, is one of the Cobb DOT comments and recommendations is for a road improvement at the intersection of Ackworth Dallas Road and Cedar Crest. And pardon me if I pause. There's Dallas Ackworth Road, Old Dallas Ackworth Road, and Ackworth Dallas Road all here together, so I always have to make sure I get the right one. But there is a proposed recommendation from Cobb DOT for what's something called an R-cut, which is called a road improvement, and there's various disagreements and opinions about whether that's an improvement or not to that intersection, which is away from this, just north of this proposed property. Certainly, our development of proposed 73 homes is not causing that traffic impact at just 73 homes. We believe that recommendation is one that you as the commissioners can take under consideration. We are happy as the applicant, Wasserman Group, to participate as recommended by Cobb DOT, or to participate in some other fashion as recommended or determined by you as the Cobb County Board of Commissioners of Roads and Revenues. We just want you to know that that's an idea or a proposal, and we want those members in the audience to know that's not something that the Wasserman Group is proposing. What we want to do is be willing participants with Cobb DOT and the community in improving the road system in the appropriate manner and as determined by you as the Board of Commissioners. And I think that, again, goes to great lengths to show how well this applicant has attempted and has done to work with the community and work with the county to address each and every concern that has been raised. Again, we believe this is an excellent application as it's evolved into its state today, and respectfully request your decision to approve this rezoning subject to the stipulation letter dated May 14th, which embodies and encapsulates all the items which I've mentioned to you today. With that, thank you for your consideration. We're here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, start with those in opposition. Remember, we have 10 minutes, so I think there's 4 of you. If you sort of appropriately divide your time so all 4 of you can be heard, I'd appreciate it.
Chair, if I may, for those that are speaking, there is a timer that's on the podium. When you're speaking, you'll see it off to the left, so you'll be able to watch your time as it's running.
Let us know who you are and where you live. I appreciate, but the board
Teresa.
appreciate that also.
Excuse me, I'm Teresa Stendal. I reside at 5850 Autry Church Road for the last 44 years. I sent emails yesterday. I trust that you all received them, so I'll make this very short and sweet. The one constant, regardless of all the changes that have happened in the last 44 years, the one constant that remains in the Lake Allatoona area is the need for this area to be preserved and protected. An RSL has already, through the Northwest Land Vulnerability Study, been designated for a specific location that is directly off of Cobb Parkway, and it's not on Ackworth Dallas Road. Just a few things to be reminded of is the RSL is not allowed on a local road. This proposal is not in compliance with the Northwest Land Vulnerability Analysis. At 3.4 units per acre, this is a diluted units per acre in terms of density because it's only 21 acres. There's still 40 acres of future development. There's no realistic traffic management plan for this project, and no waivers should be granted to any developer that's outside of the county code guidelines. And there is a Pumpkin Vine wastewater IGA that is in play. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stendel.
Good morning. My name is Robert Margaritta. I'm here to represent the Homeowners Association at Governor's Town Club. Governor's Town Club is the large development across Cedar Crest Road from this proposed development. I will say that we've been at this for about, this applicant's been at this for about a year, and the Wasserman Group has yet to this day approached Governor's Town Club about their plans and what they want to do, and ask for our opinion. As part of our responsibilities on the board of directors of the Homeowners Association, in our March meeting, we continue to discuss this application. And I'll read little portions of our meeting minutes of what it says. It says, the board is not opposed to development as long as it complies with the existing zoning, the Cobb County's long-term land use plan. This rezoning does not comply with either. So therefore, the board made a motion to vote on the following: to oppose the 70 application for an RSL community with if it had density higher than 3 units per acre, any units for rentals of over 10% of the total units in the community, access to and from the RSL via Ackworth Dallas Road, the proposed use of an R-cut at intersection of Cedar Crest Road that would restrict existing traffic flow, and use of any public pump stations, which would be against Cobb County Code, and also any costs associated with any road improvements along Ackworth Dallas Road or Cedar Crest Road should be borne 100% by the applicant and not the county. That resolution was passed unanimously by the board. This is a copy of our minutes of our meeting, and I would just like to leave this for the record.
You just give it to the clerk, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to show you some comments on the map over here. This is where our concern is. The proposed development is here. The only access is on Ackworth Dallas Road. Ackworth Dallas Road is a substandard connector road between 2 major roads. The R-cut intersection is right here. That's what's being proposed. So residents that live in Governor's Town Club or anywhere further down Cedar Crest Road, today they have free access to get into all of these businesses at this intersection. When they put this R-cut in here, they can make their way over to these businesses, but you can't go back. So DOT's recommendation is for you to only take a right-hand turn, go down to US 41, where the speed limit on that road is 55 miles an hour. There's no left-hand turn arrow on that lane for you to make a U-turn to come all the way back home. Furthermore, high school students that go to Altoona High School use this road as a shortcut to get to school. When they return trip from home to avoid US 41, they go down Ackworth Dallas Road and make a left on Cedar Crest to come home. All that will be forbidden. When this development would be built, people who live here can look out their window and see the Publix, but you can't get there. So, furthermore, one other statement I would want to make is the Cumberstown Club Board of Directors, we were here 2 years ago, and we helped these property owners to fight a rezoning to put a boat storage yard on this property. During that procedure, they came into the commission meeting and told you, commissioners, that we would come back in 90 days and present another plan. So we helped with that, and you voted it down, said it was not good use, wasn't a fit. They showed us another plan. What their plan back then that we supported had this section, this piece of property right here. There's 10 acres of property right here that's been for sale for 5 years, it's still for sale. That was the access to get to Cedar Crest Road. That piece of property was included in all of this property that's in that 68 acres of property that's part of the submission. That plan included that, and we supported it. So I'm here to ask you to say, support the recommendations from your staff to deny this. Support the recommendations from the Planning Zoning Commission to deny this. They voted it down. This does not make sense for us. Does not make sense for the community to force this square peg in a round hole just to help this applicant to sell this property, build this development. There's a better way to do this. I would ask for you to deny this application and ask them to come back and submit something that makes better sense for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Chavone with the Archdiocese of Atlanta, 2401 Lake Park Drive, Smyrna, Georgia. I'm here representing the Archdiocese of Atlanta. I'm the Director of Real Estate for the Archdiocese of Atlanta, representing the Archdiocese and our parish, St. Clair of Assisi, which is just down the road from this proposed development. We sent an email to each of you yesterday that outlined our concerns. We've been brought into this through reference by the developer where St. Clair of Assisi parish and their property may be a potential solution to a shortfall in their sewer capacity. So I just wanted to read into the minutes. It's our understanding that this development is seeking a utilization of 75 ERUs. It currently has an allocation of 68, translates into a shortfall of 7. It was brought to our attention that the developer has cited as a mitigating circumstance for this shortfall that St. Clair of Assisi Catholic Church, which is located just west of the proposed development, has an allocation of 57. The developer, who has not consulted us, claims that our allocation will obviously not be used. I just wanted to point out that the building that we just finished is our first building. It's part of a master plan for the campus that calls for a sanctuary, church building classrooms, and possibly a school. So we object to any developer using our ERU allocation without our permission to justify their development. Therefore, we're opposed to the current plan and the sewer allocation justification for the homestead at Governor's Town Square. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Rodney Tumlin, and I am in support of this development. I'm one of the landowners that is selling this property.
Okay.
This land,
Excuse me, sir. Kevin? Mr. Moore? Were you aware you had somebody here in support of this motion? Because you've already used your allocated time for support. That's the problem. You didn't know he was coming? Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I'm going to give the opposition 1 more minute, okay? So in order
that's
to be
fine.
fair here, okay?
I'll be brief then.
Okay, all right.
My father was born on this property, raised on this farm. My brothers and I were raised on this farm. The gentleman mentioned earlier about the boatyard. I'm in my 61st year. I'm still teaching high school. I would like to retire. My brothers would like to retire. We're all the same age. Cobb County has denied us rezoning for years. We need to divulge ourselves of this property. People tear our gates down. They dump on dump their garbage on us, then Cobb County comes back and fines us. We would like to sell this. We need to sell this. We need to retire. 61 years old, still teaching high school. So this is one of the things that we need to, we've been here since 1929 when my father was born on this property. And we would like, this is a great development. It fits well with Cobb County's plan, with their future development plan. And people with the baby boom generation are getting older. They need retirement living. They need more of it here in Cobb County. And so I would ask you to please consider and approve this development proposed by the Wasserman Group.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anybody else in opposition that would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll now turn this over to Commissioner Gamble.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for your understanding of this case being postponed last month. This area is quite challenging to develop, and Brad, thank you. We do have several policies and guidelines that affect this, and I would like to take a moment just to refresh the board. Back in 2014, 3 of the 5 board members approved the Northwest Land Vulnerability Analysis that is applicable to this area. Also, as was mentioned, we have the Pumpkin Vine Sewer Allocation, which is outlined in this area. What doesn't show up very well, and I apologize, is this actually touches Cobb Parkway, just to kind of give everybody a sense of where this is. It also touches Cedar Crest Road and then also 92. Where the conflict comes in a little bit with allocation is what is defined as the future NAC in this picture and what is defined in the Northwest Vulnerability Study does not quite overlap each other. On page 16 of the Northwest Vulnerability Study is a map, and it's labeled number 4. I'm sorry, Brad, I didn't give you this. I can give this to you if you need to. Of where this area encompasses. Part of this property that we are looking at today for rezoning falls within that defined area. Furthermore, in Appendix 16 of this policy guideline, it gives us specific guidelines as far as how the area should be developed. This area is zoned a NAC, and we know that RSL is allowed in the NAC. Code allows the RSL to go there, just for the understanding of the homeowners. However, in the specific area guidelines that is called out for this area, it also states that recommended residential uses should be at the mid-range of the low-density residential category. So again, we're supposed to have a midpoint. We know that since this is not on a collector road, RSL allows for 4 units per acre. This development also does not fit road guidelines for RSL because it's on a local road. However, I can't change what was done in 2014 when this was determined a NAC. So with that being said, I would like to make my motion for us to approve this RSL at 2 units per acre, subject to Fire Department, Stormwater, Water and Sewer Division, DOT comments. And actually, I'm going to take, pardon me here, if we could have DOT, Michael Francis, come up for a quick second. I want to clarify the road improvement that's being discussed for Cedar Crest in this location.
Hi, I'm Michael Francis. I'm with Cobb DOT.
Hi, Michael. Can we discuss this R-cut that's proposed at the intersection of Ackworth Dallas and Cedar Crest, and then the fees that the developer we will potentially enter into an agreement with in the future?
Okay, yes. So the R-cut, which stands for Restrict Crossing U-Turn, basically it will allow, if you're on Cedar Crest, you could turn into the Publix, and if you're headed, I guess, westbound, you could turn onto Ackworth Dallas Road. If you're on Dallas Ackworth Road, you would have to make a right go down to the intersection of Cobb Parkway and make the U-turn. As part of the restricted movement, we are planning to also improve the intersection of Cobb Parkway at Cedar Crest. We'll make changes to the median to allow the U-turn, as well as adjust the signal to forbid that movement.
Okay, thank you.
The cost amount we came up, you want to discuss
Yep.
that? Was $200,000, and that's inclusive of the installation of the arc cut as well as the improvements at Cobb Parkway.
Thank you. So in regards to, you have a question, Bob?
Yeah, now, who's paying for that?
That is, the developer had agreed to
So the
contribute
developer would pay for that?
a portion of it, not 100%.
I'm just wondering why the county should be paying for improvements that are needed for a development.
The question is the improvement needed at this intersection based on this development, or is it an improvement that's needed based on the traffic that's flowing through there? And that's one thing that I would like to hold off until site plan review, since we are changing the density on this. I'm not sure if with the reduced density that follows the policy guidelines, that our cut will still be needed.
It would just seem to me if it wasn't on DOT's list prior to this zoning case, then it wasn't something that was identified as being needed.
But you have to remember, when this zoning application first started, we had 216 homes.
Right, but what I'm saying is it hasn't been on any list, has it, as being needed prior to the zoning application being filed?
Correct.
So then it would seem to me that it wasn't something that DOT had identified as being needed until the zoning came. So to me, it seems like the zoning is causing the impact. Just my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Just more so on cost, not necessarily addressing the substance of the request, but with the reduction in units, is the developer still willing to put money towards this improvement?
That's what we'll need to discuss in site plan review, because again, with the reduction in density, that's also going to change, I'm guessing, DOT comments and their requirements. So that's why I don't want to say a set amount, but that would be discussed at site plan review, and then.
Okay.
I do know that, get rid of that thing on the board, please, that was a mistake. I do know previously Mr. Moore was part of another zoning where we had a similar issue, and we simply said, hey, this thing, even though it hadn't met all the criteria for a warrant, he was willing to put a traffic light there. And the developer was willing to pick up the cost of it. So I think this is a similar case. If they want to fix this, they should absorb the whole cost of it, period.
I agree. And the thing is, I mean, I understand wanting to wait till plan review for DOT to let you know whether or not it's still needed with reducing to 2. But if the board approves this, there's no requirement, unless you put it as a stipulation, that the developer pay 100%. So we could sit here and say all day long that, well, we're going to let plan review decide, but unless it's in the stipulation somewhere that they're going to pay, there's no requirement. And if DOT comes back and says they still want it, we're left holding the bag. To me, I think that you've made it very clear what you intend to do. If you need to wait and find out from DOT and the developer which way they're willing to go, I would just hold it until next month and let the discussions happen. I mean, in 30 days' time, the developer can easily do the math to find out at 2 units to the acre if they're still willing to contribute the money, and you're going to know going into it. Because if they're not willing to contribute the money, I'm not willing to support it.
Thank you. But what we also need to remember is I don't want to throw this full burden on this one developer for this parcel. We have other land that is along that Ackworth-Dallas Road that is assumed to be developed, because remember, this application originally started out at 65 acres, and so they reduced it down to 41. So part of the concern of our one speaker was, what are they going to do with the other 44 acres that they had originally come in with? We're not sure if this group will develop it or if it's gonna be developed by another group, plus we have other land. So I would almost rather see us say they're gonna be responsible for a portion of it, and then we set a policy or a guideline, I'm not sure which way to do it, that other development along that road would then contribute towards that R cut as well.
Well, I think one of the ways you could do that is just in whatever motion, when you got to the point of approving it, you can make it very clear in your motion and your stipulations or comments, informing staff and basically informing any property owners, anybody coming forward is gonna be expected to contribute towards future improvements on the road. But to say that you don't wanna, I mean, sometimes it doesn't pay to be first. And these folks happen to be first, and yes, they made it lower. I understand, the folks want to sell the property, but, bottom line is, it's a give and take world. And, if they want to come in here and develop this property, then they might have to pay for the impact. And yes, they're first, and there may be others coming behind them. You can make it very clear to anybody coming behind them that there's going to be an expectation by this board that they participate in future road improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burrow.
Excuse me, was a traffic study done to determine the need here?
It was, but again, it was based on the original zoning application, which was 65 acres and 216 units. So it significantly changed.
And a signal is not warranted, or we don't know? With this,
I do not believe the signal, and Michael, please correct me, the signal based on the proximity to Cobb Parkway is not warranted.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct. The signal is not warranted, and based on the location, I guess, to Cobb Parkway, we generally ask for 1,000 feet, and that doesn't meet the 1,000 feet.
So it wouldn't be warranted,
It doesn't warrant.
period. I mean, even if the traffic count was increased, the distance would be limiting?
No, we could work with the distance, but
Okay.
it could, yeah, we could.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gamble? I want to support you in your request, but I do know that density does permit an applicant to be able to have resources to be able to do certain things. And short of having this conversation here at the dais, I'm supportive of Commissioner Ott's suggestion to hold this and to work that out. But I'm challenged with wanting to support you, but knowing that when density is reduced significantly, that it limits resources to be able to put forth other projects. And one of the speakers stated that it's not just these developments that will be contributing to traffic, but he said there are a lot of other public burdens on the road that currently exist. So I'm not even opposed to DOT making some contribution here, but I don't know if we're going to be able to work that out.
And again, that's why I kind of wanted to wait and see, because of the reduced density, based on the policies that have been put in place for this property, how that changes the impact and the requirements for that R cut. But then also, that they would have to contribute some. I know, we could potentially do it based on percentage going forth, but I'm not quite sure exactly how much. I know I was going to put a cap on up to amount, because again, we don't know if this one developer is just going to do the 21 or the 65, and that way.
The 21 or 60?
The original application was for
housing
65
types.
65 acres, right, and now it's been reduced down to the 21.
Yeah.
So there's still the unknown of what they're going to do with the other 40-some acres.
Okay.
So that's why I was kind of thinking of doing it at a cap and then apply a ratio.
Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, I'm still processing. I may have some additional questions, but by all means, go ahead.
So for this development, that access is definitely needed or required. gonna be required?
Correct, their only access is off of Ackworth Dallas.
Okay, and do you have a cost estimate of what the improvements would be?
Right
from
now,
the
DOT is estimating it to be $200,000 to insert that R cut and then also make the improvements at Cedar Crest and 41.
Okay, well, if you want to move forward and stipulate that when funding is available, whether it's through the developer or the county portion, or wherever it's coming from, but,
Okay.
I mean, I'd support you on that.
The problem is that when you do that, if the board doesn't approve the funding for it, then this thing will be out there in limbo forever. I think it's better to just go ahead and make a clear decision. Here's what's required to do that. I just don't see the sense of driving up Ackworth Dallas Road here, making a right, going down, making a U-turn to get into Publix. This is crazy. It's just, I mean, any reasonable person, this is the kind of octaflugerons that, just don't seem reasonable to me. So I just want to be very clear about that. We have precedent here where if the developer really wants, it's important to get into Publix, he pays for it. It's the cost of that development.
Well, but also if you look at staff comments, DOT is giving an either or option. The developer can either put in a left turn lane to access his development, or he can do the R cut. So that's where it gets a little tricky is.
I get that, but the staff also recommends
Right, in plan
denial,
review.
and the level of service on this road is F. So, I mean, the facts argue for a major revision to the road itself here, but that money's got to come from somewhere. And to put a stipulation there, it's backing into forcing the county to spend money that's not part of their plan. And as uncomfortable as it is, Commissioner Ott's got a great point. Sometimes it hurts to be first. And, in this case here, I don't see how any way that this county is going to be forced, its hand's going to be forced into paying for something down the road that's not part of our plan, because once you do it, this sort of approach for one, then you got to do it for everybody.
But I guess then how do we go back if the county doesn't put part of it, we put it all on this developer? How does this developer go back and collect from those other property owners when they come in and benefit from what they put in?
I think the answer to that, and I kind of mentioned it before. No, it basically, in the time I've been up here on the board, there have been two issues that have always been of concern in this part of the county. One is the sewer, and the second is traffic. And no matter how bad the traffic in East Cobb may be, when I drive in this part of the county, the traffic is a mess. Okay? And to add this development with it being proposed, it's going to make it worse. But you can make it very clear. We do it with the future land use map, and we do it lots of other times. You can make very clear to the property owners for the remaining undeveloped property that if they come in for development, they are going to be expected to participate in traffic calming if their development is going to have an impact. But I mean, to move forward on something and say, well, we're going to wait till plan review, we're going to wait till this, we're going to see what happens there. I mean, this is like taking the cake out of the oven and it's half baked. All right, and I totally support going down to 2. I think that's great. Reducing the density makes total sense and all that. But to move forward on anything else, I mean, it's not ready to be voted on. It's not ready for prime time. It needs another 30 days to kind of take what you've suggested, which I think is the right direction to go on the development, and then go back to the developer, go back to DOT. I mean, because think about how many times have been said in this last 30 minutes, well, DOT's numbers are based on old numbers, or DOT is based on this, or based on not what we're looking at. I think you need to give DOT and the developer an opportunity to look at what your proposal is, which I think is the right one, and to come back to this board in 30 days and say, okay, based on 2 units to the acre, yes, we need the ARC, whatever it's called.
Okay.
The roundabout, you might as well call it a roundabout because that's what everybody's going to be doing. Is that's what's needed, or do we need to do something different? I mean, we're throwing out stuff here. I mean, like the chairman said, to have to pull out of here, to turn right, to go left. I mean, you can't even come up with that if you tried. So I really think that you need to hold it.
With the reduction, is that still gonna be needed, correct?
Yeah. We don't know, but
We don't
again,
know, but I know in other cases, DOT, and please correct me, Michael, 30 is the threshold for requiring the left turn lane or the excel, decel lanes.
Are they agreeable to the left turn lane? The developer putting that in?
Again, DOT made this an either or, and that's what's making it difficult.
it doesn't matter. The level of
Yeah.
service,
Find
the
out what
level of
they'll do.
service, it's still F. There's gonna be a traffic issue, and we can't discount that. It's in the record here. So pretend like it's not gonna be a problem. You know, it is a problem already. And it says, and someone stood up here and talked about all the school traffic that goes down there and the cut-throughs. You know, I can just see the emails now. I can't get out of my development. So, I agree with Commissioner Ott. I think we're trying to find a middle ground here. We're still giving it a little bit of life by doing a continuance, and that doesn't hurt anybody.
Okay,
I agree with Commissioner Ott, on that regard.
okay.
And I commend you for trying to find a middle ground. I wasn't expecting that reduction in density. I thought we would end up denying it based off of some of the communications. So again. I'm
Well, and
supportive.
that's where it's hard because, again, staff has recommended denial, which, you know, I understand staff's reason for getting there. Where the challenge comes is back in 2014, where the board made this a NAC. And as we know, NACs allow RSL to be developed within them. So that's where the challenge is coming on this particular piece of property, is because a NAC does allow residential senior living.
Interesting.
So with that being said, I guess I'd like to make a motion to hold this for 30 days.
Any further discussion? Further discussion, call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Gambrell, is that with any specific directions or instructions to staff during that 30-day hold or to the applicants?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Do I need to make that specific? For staff to work with DOT, and then Bob, help me.
Okay, what I
and
would
then-
say is the direction is to DOT to take a look at what would be required with 2 units to the acre, to the applicant, take a look at whether or not 2 units to the acre works and still participate in paying for the improvements if required. And then that would require the applicant and DOT to get together. And so basically, everybody has to kind of talk. Does it work at 2 units to the acre? Because that's the direction you want to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Rezoning case Z9 of 2019, Blake Properties Incorporated, request rezoning from GC, NS, and NRC to RM8 for the purpose of townhomes in land lots 413 and 476 of the 19th district. The property is located on the southeasterly side of Powder Springs Road and on the northeasterly side of Brandon Lee Drive. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z9? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there's 36 people here opposed to rezoning case Z9. Can I get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z9? Please raise your hands.
What's that?
And let the record show there's 3 people here in support of rezoning application Z9. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Kevin, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is an application filed on behalf of Blake Properties. The property is 16.3 acres. It's located on Powder Springs Road, just south of the intersection of Powder Springs and what I still call is Windy Mac. That is the Macklin Road, Windy Hill intersection. This property is just south of that intersection. This property is currently zoned NRC, GC, and NS. NS is neighborhood shopping, which was the old precursor to NRC. But the property is located entirely within a community activity center, so all of those categories are available to be developed simply by pulling permits for those commercial uses and categories today. What we are proposing is a application for an RM8 age-restricted community in this location. And I think part of the story you're going to hear and part of the story you're going to hear from those that are in the red T-shirts behind me are going to look at, and that is look at this surrounding area and whether this fits or not. We believe it's entirely consistent. We believe it's compatible. We believe it adds to, it doesn't take away, especially given the current entitlement for this property. But if you look at the surrounding area that you see on your map, what you notice is you have residential developments to the south and to the west. Grove Park, which is a suburban condominium, the precursor to RSL, that's over 4 units per acre. You have the RA4 Macklin Station to our south and adjacent to us, which is a residential neighborhood to the south of us. This property, though, is also surrounded by the shopping centers across the street on Powder Springs, the public shopping center, what everybody concerned, the post office, the Chick-fil-A, very intense commercial activity center, of which this is a part, and this property is a part, as well as to our east is the mobile home park, which is called Lamplighter. It's a extremely large mobile home park that has been in existence for a very long time, and that is also adjoining this property. All of that, we believe, comes into play in what we're proposing for a age-restricted townhome community. This age-restricted townhome community would be for lease. That's something that we don't see and haven't seen. Other jurisdictions, other communities have seen age-restricted, a senior community that's solely for lease. They have seen that. Those have thrived over the years, succeeded over the years because they're done correctly. One of the things that you'll see on the signs behind me is no to apartments, no to high-density affordable apartments. This isn't high-density affordable apartments, not apartments in the sense that what you and I think of as apartments, that is an apartment building and a multifamily structure. What's proposed here, and when we go to the site plan, you can start to begin to see it and see what Blake Properties sees for this property. These are built as attached townhomes. These are built as townhomes. These, however, are only a story and a half in height. All of the living area is on the main floor and on the single floor. These are specifically designed for the market that it's intended to meet, and that is an age-restricted 55 years of age and older market. The only difference between this community and Grove Park, which is where a lot of the residents that are behind me are from, is that this is being offered for lease to meet a specific economic demand that's out there for the age-restricted, for the senior community, versus Grove Park, which is for sale. That's the only difference. The lease portion of this, again, is something that you've been hearing about and have seen, and which we know to be a hole in Cobb County in our housing market for addressing the senior community needs that are growing and expanding every day. That doesn't exist here unless you want to go to what I call a traditional senior apartment building. That is true senior apartments where you have a building and it's located and built 5-6 stories tall. That's what I consider to be apartments, and I think that's what we all consider to be apartments. Just because these are for lease and not for sale doesn't necessarily meet, to me, what I call apartments, nor does it imply what they are trying to imply by calling them apartments. In this case, we were originally proposed 132 townhomes at this site. What we heard through those discussions were a couple of issues. Number one, concerns with the level of density at 132 homes, concerns with traffic impact, and concerns with school impact. So how has this changed since that time? Well, first of all, it was reduced to 106 from 132, which is only 6.2 units per acre. Number two, from a traffic impact, we looked at this, and that's when this developer transitioned this project to an age-restricted project to address the traffic impact. There is no question that there's traffic on Powder Springs Road at this location. We can go to any road in Cobb County, there's traffic on the road. There's traffic and congestion at this location. But there is no question from a traffic statistical standpoint that an age-restricted development of 106 homes provides less traffic impact from daily trips in and out of this property than if this property was developed commercially as it's entitled today. There's no question. That cannot even realistically and reasonably be debated from a traffic impact standpoint. So what we have done with transitioning this project to an age-restricted community is to address that traffic impact concern. Lastly, we were hit with a lot of school impact by having 132 townhomes that would be fee simple townhomes at this location, or even close to that number of townhomes, the tremendous school impact that could possibly have. Again, what we were able to do with this is by age restricting it, you address the school impact from a capacity standpoint. But what we're proposing is this is the leased community. This has a manager, it has a company that owns and operates and manages and has done so successfully, time and time in prior years, has been involved in successfully managing age-restricted communities such as this, and has done so over a number of years. That's how this would be developed, and that's how this would be used in the future. What that does is addresses, again, the school concern that was raised with school tax dollars, because this would then be fully taxable and not exempt because it is owned and operated by that one single company. Turning again, though, to some of the details of this project and the quality that would be proposed for here. Let me step in. Here we have the development off of Powder Springs Road with access aligning with the shopping center that's directly across the street. This has a full amenity, a clubhouse that's specifically been designed for the needs of the senior community it serves, as well as additional park area that would be used by the residents. There's additional pocket parks that are provided as well. In addition, this community, as shown on the more detailed plan as opposed to the rendered plan, has a network of sidewalks that will be stamped and marked for full walking ability and use for the residents, that connects with the green passive space that's down in this location as well. In other words, this is being designed both from the sidewalk to the interior to be a high quality senior development. However, it is leased, but that should not change the perception of whether it's quality or not. Going to that end, here you see the proposed elevations that utilize carriage-style garage doors, as well as a variety of materials of stone, board and batten, as well as brick, to provide a beautiful landscape for this community, for those that live in it and those that visit. Also, I want to show you, just from a further demonstration for this applicant, and you can see the level of quality that can be expected for the clubhouse and for the interiors of the proposed units for this development. This is not being built or developed in a manner that is less than. It's being built in a manner that is more than. Thanks. This is providing quality, age-restricted homes that can be leased for that segment of the senior community that can't afford to buy the $400,000 senior condos that are on the market right now. People, and there are lots of them, seniors that have income, but do not want to spend that on purchasing a condominium in a senior community, but they want to make that lifestyle choice. I want to live in a community that seniors, they make that age-restricted choice. I want to live like that. I want to make that choice. But they can't do it in Cobb County because they don't want to spend the money to purchase a $400,000 age-restricted condominium, but they'd be perfectly willing to pay $2,000 a month to lease one. And we're missing that. We've missed that. It's not, you can't do that if you want to do that in Cobb County today. And with that, we believe this is an excellent application. It's one that's justified, we believe, and one we hope that you'll positively consider and approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, those in opposition?
Thank you. My name is Rex Renfro. I have the honor of being the president of the Grove Park Homeowners Association. We're located directly across from where this development's proposed. The first thing I'd like to do is here is a petition with over 300 signatures opposed to this development. I'd like to put that in the record. It's put together poorly by volunteers, headed up by Lori Squark. She did an incredible job. If you need any help like that, you might want to talk to her. We oppose this development. Not that we oppose any development, but this development we oppose. I want to start with an email that was sent to you all. Mr. Tom Bailey, who is a resident of our community, sent you a copy of the email. It was sent to him, signed by somebody named Venda Goodman, who supposedly said she represented the seniors in the community supporting this. Well, Mr. Bailey got on the Secretary of State website, and it turns out Venda Goodman is the chief financial officer for Blake Properties. So I'd like for you all to take that letter, throw it out of the record, not consider it, and take whatever action you think is appropriate for that kind of behavior. Second of all, I want you to tell you that we support the planning staff, because the planning staff told you not to do this. Planning staff said, does this proposal permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of the adjacent property? Their answer, no. Whether the zoning proposal will adversely affect the existing use or usability adjacent to the nearby property. Their answer, it'll have an adverse effect. Whether the zoning proposal will result in a use which will or could cause an excessive burdensome use of existing streets? Yes. More importantly, most importantly, whether the zoning proposal is conformity with the policies and intent of the comprehensive plan? No. Why? Because it's higher density than every other property around it. If you look at your own map, there's not any place around that has this kind of zoning. They're asking you to do something that's against your own land use map. We support the planning staff. This should be absolutely denied. I'll give you that in case you don't want to look through that whole plan. I want to talk to you a minute about the traffic analysis. Grove Park is a senior adult community, 55 and over. 55. We're not retired. We're working. The majority of the people are not 80 when you begin to look at whether you should quit driving and your kids start fighting with you about taking the keys. As he would have you to believe, you think 30% your number, that's what you based your traffic analysis on. My gracious, these are people who are working, people who are active. I am 74 years old. I work for the Braves. I don't sit at home. For your future plans, you need to talk about 30% is the number you use. This, if you approve this thing, it's going to make the traffic at the Macklin Road, Winnie Hill intersection impossible. Right now, it's only next to impossible. We're 3/10 of a mile away from that intersection, and there are mornings in which the traffic is backed up past our entrance. And the analysis says you all should let them turn left or right coming out of that. All you gotta do is one person come out of that development and try to turn left in the morning, and everybody might as well go home because they're not getting to work. This is not workable. I want to talk to you a minute about cost. Listen, I can take these numbers any way you want them, and it makes no sense. You're told there's a demand for this kind of development. Well, he says $2,000 a month rent. Well, my gracious Friday. For what this development, he says he's gonna rent at $2,000. The Wall Street Journal says the way you value something like this in rent is you take 0.1% of it, and that's the value. So that would make the value of that place they're building $200,000. My gracious, you can get a mortgage today that you would be paying less than $1,000 a month to own the home, and he's gonna charge $2,000 in rent. This is not New York. Okay. Now, there are places that you could do this. I'm sorry, there are. You can go to Kennesaw right now. There's a development for active 55 people renting, if you want to do that. The difference, they have 40,000 square foot of amenities, swimming pools, bistros, what you need if you want to move into a rental community. This community is forced to put 4,000 square foot of a community center. Yeah, 4,000. Now, am I going to pay $2,000 to rent this, or am I going to go to Kennesaw and pay $1,750 and get all the amenities that I want in life? This is not rocket science. Now, so the issue becomes, what happens if this doesn't work? Now, you guys have made a great investment in this community. You've set it up. It's right now, we paid, contrary to him, $260,000 for our unit, not $400,000. However, they're now selling for $360,000. And everybody's starting to pay taxes. You started our community in 2004. Then it went under. You stayed with it. A developer came along, picked it up. We finally finished it this year. And it's starting to pay off for you all into property taxes. But now you put a development over here that's a rental unit. Who's going to take care of it long term? Those people have no, I'm not making them wrong, but they have no interest in what the long-term maintenance is. So when we were here at the Planning Commission, they were told that the law requires them to do a reserve study and fund it. Not accurate. Here's a copy of that bill. What it says is you have to do a reserve study and fund it when you sell the first unit. Well, they've told you, they've promised you they're not going to sell a unit for 5 years. So who's going to maintain it? If this thing goes down the tubes, then what's going to happen? Well, a person owns it, but is he going to put bad money and more money and good money after bad? No. No. And you will have no ability because there will be no money there to maintain it. So if you decide and for whatever reason that you actually want to approve this fiasco, then at least make them do a reserve study and make them fund it so we don't end up with something that drags the property values down in the neighborhood. So if somebody brings you something that will enhance the neighborhood, we'll support it. But we are not going to support a rental unit that makes no economic sense. And we ask you to deny it. Thank you very much. Copy of that act.
Thank you, Mr. Renthrow.
Good
Ma'am,
morning.
I'll give you a couple minutes.
Okay, that's really all I need.
Okay.
Good morning, council members and residents. I believe Mr. Rex laid it out for you very clearly. I just want to touch on a few points that he did make that we've been thinking of also. I'm from Macklin Station. I'm the secretary of our homeowner association. Now, this development is going to butt up right against our entrance, and along the backside, residents will have to look over from their yards and see this development. It looks very nice on paper, but a few things to reiterate. First of all, 50 is not a senior. People are 50 years old. They go to work every day. We just heard from a gentleman who said he was 60 and he's still teaching high school. So obviously he gets up every morning and goes out of his division, just like these people who will be 50 and have teenage children will do. It's very important to us at Macklin Station, and I'm sure Grove Park, to have security, and we've had that over the years. But if you begin to bring in the beautiful word of lease, which we know that really means rent, into a community, then you're opening yourself up to all kinds of people. And I'm not just making any disparaging remarks. We know this is a fact. And so this is something that we do not support, period. The other thing is the traffic. We've all been talking about traffic. The first case was about traffic. We live in Atlanta proper, metro, I'm sorry, and so we know there is traffic issues. To say that this subdivision or this complex will not have any effect on traffic just doesn't make any sense. We have a problem already. We've discussed that, and all the points that have made have been valid points, and I appreciate your time.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
if you, ma'am, if you would, ma'am, over here, would you just mind stating your name for the record, please?
Gloria Irvin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Moore, I'm willing to give you another minute in all sense of fairness if you need it or want it.
I want to reiterate, and thank you for that additional minute.
Sure.
I just want to reiterate the what and the who. The proposed community, age-restricted community that we're proposing here, the people that would live in it don't look any different than the people that are sitting right behind me who live in their own age-restricted community. They just choose to lease instead of buy. That's the difference. We're not going to have roving gangs of 55-year-old plus residents destroying Macklin Station. It's quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Just because you choose to lease doesn't make you less than somebody who chooses to buy or who can afford to buy. Doesn't make you less of a resident. Now, the decision can be whatever the decision is going to be that you will reach, but I just hope that you as board members will take that into consideration, that just because somebody wants to lease doesn't make them less than, as has been implied here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman. And I do appreciate those comments made by council, is that people lease or rent for varying reasons. And for many of us who started out or may end up in certain circumstances in life, may find ourselves renting at some point in time. And sometimes I think those that do rent are painted with a broad brush. But this zoning is certainly much larger than the issue of leasing or renting. And I do think that Mr. Renfro did an excellent job of laying out concerns of this development, many of which I've shared. And I think the biggest challenge in improving the zoning lies in the density that is proposed that is not comparable to the other developed residential communities around it. as was stated in the staff analysis, the highest density of any community in that area is 4.77 units per acre, which is associated with the Macklin Square condominiums. The density that's proposed here today is at 8 units per acre. The other densities of surrounding property are much lower and range between 2.8 units per acre and, again, the 4.77 units per acre. And this is not just a numerical analysis, but even looking at the site plan for this property. It was hard for me to perceive how a sense of community was being fostered with the way that the units were being developed on this property. For this to be a senior development where somebody may end up spending the rest of their years, there's just no village concept. There's no construct that creates a sense of community the way that it's laid out. It's just a row of unit after unit after unit after unit after unit. And I just could not feel a sense of place that would exact a rent at this rate. When I did look at the prior zoning for senior development in District 1, and you looked at that layout, you got a sense of community, that things were being established in a way that was somewhat harmonious to the amenities, to landscaping. It was very well thought out, even though the density was proposed to be decreased. But even when looking at that proposed density, you had 73 units proposed for 21 acres. Here you have 16 acres with 132 units being proposed. And again, it's just night and day for the type of the senior development that I've seen here. I do know that there have been concerns raised by the community at large with respect to the price points of the senior development that's coming before the county, because as the applicant shared, paying $400,000 plus for a senior home is not feasible for a lot of people, particularly who may be on a fixed or limited income. But it is very difficult for me to grasp the $2,000 amount for rental and seeing that as feasible for someone looking for an affordable complex. From just doing a cursory search online and looking at some rental websites, the average rental rate in Marietta is $1,154. In Atlanta, it's $1,400. In Cobb County, it is $1,250 by one site, and another site has the average rental rate for 2-bedroom in Cobb County being at $1,550. So I just couldn't perceive how someone looking for an affordable place to live is going to look beyond the average package that is provided to those who may rent in Cobb, particularly when I look at the type of amenities that are provided in this type of complex. And I'm sure there's a lot of financial analysis that went into the applicant's proposal, so I'm not going to undermine it. I'm sure they took a lot of time to prepare it and to research it, but it was just very difficult for me to grasp in light of all of the issues involved to see the viability of this community at the rental rate that's being proposed. Residents have commented a lot about traffic, and I do want to acknowledge a comment made by the applicant that provided that if the property were to be developed commercially, that traffic is likely to be more intense than this development. So some of the emails and remarks seem to lean towards this property not being developed or being developed in a way that is less intense. The way that the property is currently zoned, please know that someone can come in, possibly pull permits, and end up with a development that is more intense. So looking at this property being developed residentially, I think is somewhat reasonable if you're looking for a diminished intensity or impact on traffic. Looking at a senior development it also tends to have a less intense. I'm not saying it won't be intense, because yes, there are people out there who do work at 50, and I'm gonna be one of those. When I turn 50, my children will be teenagers. However, the commercial development that could occur here could generate more traffic. So I just want residents to be mindful of that. Part of the property is zoned GC, and I have to look at the future land use map. It's possible with the 3 different types of zoning that are here, that this property is going to have to come back for rezoning at some point in time if somebody chooses to take advantage of that footprint. But I just want you to be mindful that traffic will not be the limiting factor in developing this site, when it's just known that traffic is going to be generated by whatever development comes here. See, again, the comments about rentals or people who rent, I think were already stated. I think it's a great idea to look at how we can accommodate seniors who are looking for other price points and may not necessarily want to be in a high-rise development. And I am not going to say that I will not consider a development like this in the district at some point, because I do know there are people of varying wages that are looking for a different type of product. I just don't see this being the appropriate product for this space and the way that it has been presented here today. So my motion today is to support the staff recommendation for denial.
Yes, I think Commissioner Cupid covered all the bases. I think that the comment about leasing, Sterling Estates in East Cobb and West Cobb, 2 premier senior living facilities, are all leased properties. And so I think to say that leasing is a sign of a less than quality product is not true. I think if you look at either one of those, they are very high quality. And the traffic thing, and I would direct this to DOT, I think the gentleman who spoke in the opposition is dead on. I mean, in the line of work I have, we don't retire till 65. So that's 10 years after I could be living in one of these facilities. And you know, Commissioner Cupid talked about when she gets to the age of 50, that her children will be teenagers. I mean, I think we need to go back and look. This 30% number, I think, is outdated and not consistent with today's society. So I would request that DOT go back and reevaluate what numbers we use. But I totally support. There is no sense of community here. This is just, it's like a bunch of row houses. And so I totally support you.
Thank you.
Well, given that I'm 70, I'm really feeling left out of it here. So, okay, with that, I'll call the question. Passes 5-0. And with that, let's take a short break till 11 o'clock. we're back in session. All right, so, John, I think we're on to what, the Z26 now?
Correct.
Okay.
Rezoning case Z26 of 2019, Southern Land Partners LLC. Request rezoning from GC to R112 for the purpose of a townhome community in land lot 1067 of the 19th district. The property is located at the southeast corner of Austell Road and Silvercommon Trail, north of Sayes Road. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z26? We got 5. Let the record show there's 5 people here in opposition to rezoning case Z26. Can I get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z26? Please raise your hands. None? Let the record show there's no one here in support. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
That's perfect.
Kevin, it's all yours.
Thank you. Commissioners and Chairman, thank you. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Southern Land Partners, in this application for rezoning. This is an 8.7 acre tract. It's highlighted on the screen for you, located on Austell Road. It abuts and adjoins the Silver Comet Trail along its northern boundary, and that's that dark spot you see on the line or path that you see on the map is the Silver Comet Trail that adjoins it. As you can see, this property that's highlighted as 8.7 acres is bright red because it is currently zoned general commercial. This particular area, though, is a neighborhood activity center on your land use plan. So the general commercial category is not available for this owner to build or pull a permit. It must be rezoned consistent with the land use plan prior to development according to your county code. What we are proposing is rezoning to RM12, but not as you would typically think. This is rezoning to RM12 for a townhome community. Townhome community where we have introduced Ashton Woods builder as the builder for this project, who has done an outstanding job in other townhome communities in this area in Cobb County and metropolitan Atlanta, and is known for doing an outstanding job and bringing the type of quality that they can bring to a property and to a community. This area along Austell Road has not seen new residential development since the houses you see they were built 40 plus years ago. This area along Austell Road, until you get to the intersection with, really up till you get to the intersection with the east-west connector, has seen no new development. You see the variety of categories, the CRCs, the NRCs, the LROs, all of these non-residential uses are just recognizing what I would call older commercial businesses and locations that now carry those zoning categories, but are otherwise haven't been developed as new commercial or new retail or new neighborhood retail services of any sort. It's just the opposite. This has been just an area that has not seen new residential development or even new commercial development along this stretch of Austell Road. What we're proposing, though, would do that. The first step does hurt. Oftentimes it hurts from the developer and builder standpoint to go into an area and recognize the potential for new quality residential development, and that's what Ashton Woods recognizes here and Southern Land Partners recognizes here is a great opportunity along this Austell Road corridor, particularly in this section, where you have tracks such as this, which do present that opportunity. It does come with a little density. We are proposing a total of 73 townhomes on this 8.7 acre site. We're going to now turn to the site plan itself and walk through that. But we are proposing a density of about 8.5 per acre. But again, this property as property located within a neighborhood activity center, as property that has commercial potential due to that fact, if we're going to have the opportunity to inject new residential development of the quality that's needed, we believe this is the type of step that should be taken, and respectfully, hopefully you'll agree with that it should be taken to enable an area to overcome 40-plus years of nothing happening, and instead, let's make something happen. If it comes with a little density, that's okay, as long as we can inject the quality into it. The site plan that you see on your screen before you shows the proposed townhomes. You'll also notice it contains a very key Central Park feature that will be prominent and a part of this proposed community. In addition, wanted also to show you the elevations proposed by Ashton Woods for this project. These have been specifically designed for this location. What you see, we believe, definitely shows the level of quality from a design and aesthetic standpoint and from a visual standpoint for this community and for what we believe would be an excellent residential project here. You know, we continue to hear concerns about traffic. Will there be a traffic impact? Yes, this property is not developed today, but there's also close to 40,000 cars per day that go up and down Austell Road. So from a statistics standpoint, this does not impact traffic from to a negative standpoint, which is how DOTs and how traffic engineers would look at this traffic. And it doesn't provide a negative impact for a residential community at this location. Lastly, I do want to, again, remind the board that this property, as Zone GC in a neighborhood activity center, for those of us who practice in this area or y'all that deal with it every day and your community development staff, all of us know that dilemma, and that is the property has to be zoned to something that enables the property owner to pull a permit. It's not today. So regardless of whether this board moves forward in an approval manner with this application or otherwise, it's incumbent upon the board to place this property in a constitutional category. And at least from our position, we believe that's what the law states. And it's further our position that the board failure to do that or failure to zone this in such a manner would result in an unconstitutional taking of this private property owner's rights as well as the applicant's rights in this instance. This is just one of those dilemmas that we have that you don't often see for properties such as this. There are still a few of those left in Cobb County. We therefore respectfully urge and respectfully request your approval of this zoning application. We have another speaker as well for the remainder of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Good morning, Board. Mr. Chairman, my name is Joe Ingram. I am the Director of Land Acquisition for Ashton Woods Homes. Asked Kevin to give me a moment this morning just to talk about the merits of our application. We have, in my tenure with the company, I've been with Ashton for 10 years, and in those 10 years as a company, we've probably rezoned and built upwards of 1,000 homes in Cobb County. And we're continuously looking for opportunities for redevelopment and development within the county. And I guess that's what ultimately has led us here today. What we've heard from the opposition to our proposed development are really three main concerns. Those concerns are traffic, environmental impacts, and density. As Kevin stated earlier, the property is currently zoned GC, and we consider this a downzoning of sorts. We're going to a residential use, and be it 8 units an acre, it's still a far less offender of traffic and a far less offender of impervious surface than commercial use would be. So if those are points of opposition, if that's what you're grounding opposition in, then you should seemingly support a application to rezone to a residential use. The third point of opposition has been density. When we started looking at the property, we originally had the site laid out for, I believe it was 93 homes. After engaging the district commissioner, quickly realized that we weren't going to gain support for that 93 lot plan, so we went back to the drawing board. We cut it to 76 lots. After more meetings, hearings with Planning Commission, meetings with the opposition, we've since gone back one more time. And granted, it was a small reduction in density. We're now at 73 units, but we're at a place where if you can find favor in this application as a RM12 zoning classification, you along with that comes the certainty of an end user who has built a reputation in Atlanta over the past 30 years of developing neighborhoods and building homes for a builder who is a cutting-edge designer as well as known for our quality of construction. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have, and I appreciate your consideration in this zoning application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other voices in support? Seeing none, voices in opposition.
Good morning, Commissioner Boyce and the Board of Commissioners. My name is Helen Goss. I live on the acreage right behind where this proposed development is, and my property borders the whole backside of it. To my knowledge, I have not been contacted or met with any of these people, the developers, and have had nothing, to say about it. But I do thank you for listening to us today. And I want to tell you that in a few months, 3 exact, I'll be 93 years old. I've lived on this property for 60+ years. It is a quiet neighborhood. The people, I went out among the people this past week. I got a petition, which my daughter will present to you in a moment, and I found their heart is like mine. They want to keep the community as is. We have no kind of density development in our area, our neighborhood like this. We don't have crime, we have good neighbors, and we are hoping to keep it that way, and we would respectfully request that you listen to us, your constituents, that we would be able to live in a quiet and a peaceable neighborhood for the rest of our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, ma'am. I have to ask you, are you still working?
I'm working at the house very hard.
Thank you for coming this morning. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Goss, and I live on the property adjoining this proposed development. And this is the petition that my mom put together, and I just want to read it to you. And this is what we took to the neighbors. As concerned neighbors of the property at 4561 Austell Road, Austell, Georgia, we are very opposed to the requested rezoning of the property Z26 to RM12. We respectfully request that this proposed zoning be denied. We believe the proposed development of 70-plus townhomes is not in the best interest of the community. The only access to the property is on Austell Road at a major bridge, making it especially dangerous to enter the workflow traffic. The density of the proposed development would be a burden to our community, the already heavy traffic on Austell Road, our area's schools, and our environment. The proposed development is not in keeping with the single-family homes of the adjoining neighborhoods, where most homes are situated on at least 1/2 acre or more. Again, we request this zoning be denied. We appreciate our commissioners working with us to keep our community a safe and desirable place to live. And then I have the signatures and the addresses.
And how many signatures on that petition, ma'am?
Let's see,
Roughly?
about 20.
Okay, thank you.
And that was just within a short period of time when a lot of people were home.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's, excuse me, my name's John Turner, and I'm the son-in-law of Helen Goss. And the proposed 73, 76, or whatever they say that they've got to have to get it done, still are nothing but, they want to call luxury apartments. They're just mashed together with few lanes of traffic that you can go through, I think about 3 on the property line of Helen's. And it's row houses. It's apartments is what it is. And it doesn't fit into the neighborhood as far as the density that this neighborhood should be kept at. Plus, when I'm out working in the yard, from time to time, it doesn't happen, maybe about once a week, I hear collisions up on the highway. And the reason I hear them is that most of the area up there is already businesses, the chiropractor and one homeowner up there. The rest is just a zone commercial type. And I think my property is zone future commercial is what I think it's zoned down. But I hear wrecks up there all the time. And if you go up there, even at Seas Road, where there's no turning lane to get on Seas Road to come into Seas Road, there's front-end parts, mirrors, headlights from collisions up there all the time. And none of those apartments or none of those businesses on that road has turning lanes to go into their property. And they're having rear-end collisions or up there continuously because of the amount of traffic and stuff. I do know that whenever the entranceway is made, that the absolutely would be tremendous to try to go across to go back to the left. You'd have to go to the right and then turn again because of the traffic going both ways. Plus, if you made a entrance speed ramp to go up to where the bridge is at, it's no place to do that. If you tried to, you would run down into Mahaffey's Cut, which is one of the deepest cuts on the East Coast as a few years ago. I don't know whether that's been beat or not, but it's a very deep cut, a gorge in there. I do know that they're proposing to have a certain amount of a containment pond there. They're also having buffer zones where there's turn lane up on the highway that they're talking about trying to put in, or where they leave. And also the road and parking. That eats up a little bit of acreage. I don't know whether it would mount up to 1 or 2 acres, but that would reduce the amount of houses that can be put on that piece of property and match what the neighborhood is. Galt, on the last meeting we had, said he had to zone something to it, so he zoned a 5, a 4 or 5 is what we were talking about, and he zoned a 5. I really think what the lady commissioner here said about the place up there in Ackworth is that it needs to be reduced down to where that it would, the people that own the houses would have at least a little bit of land to walk around the house on. And I think that the area should be 2 to 3. So I'm against what they're asking to be zoned for. And I vote no what they've got on the proposal today. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Charlotte Sweetland. I live in the neighborhood with the Goss family. Been there about 20 years. I won't discuss the density. We've already hit on that. That's our main concern. We understand that the property will be developed someday, and we like the fact that it's residential. We just don't like the fact that there will be so many units, and it's just too dissimilar to what the surrounding neighborhood is. And Mr. Moore made a comment, there hasn't been a lot of development in this area, and we actually like that. There has been new townhomes developed on Brookwood and Austell, which he didn't comment on. He said you had to go all the way to east-west. But that's a pleasing development, but not nearly as dense as what they propose. So we'd ask you to take the recommendation of your zoning commission and deny this and keep the land use plan in place. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to voice in opposition? See none, Commissioner Cupid?
Thank you, Chairman. May I get some help in zooming out of this map? Looking for Anderson Mill Road. Thank you. This area overall, and looking at the entire map, is primarily single-family residential, but you can see towards Anderson Mill Road and even on Drennan that there are some townhome communities, some fee simple communities, if you go down across Austell Road on Drennan Avenue as well, that are interspersed here. And this is not just typical for this area. I've seen this in other parts of the county, and some which have been very tastefully done to blend into the quality of the single-family units there. So I'm not wholly opposed to townhomes, but I am committed to doing something that is more in sync with this community. Townhomes, even just south of Austell Road, is still an atypical use if you look at that development pattern south of Drennan versus the development pattern north. Drennan is also in line with Silver Comet Trail. So on the east side of Austell Road, you'll see Silver Comet Trail. And so I'm in agreement with the residents that what's being proposed today is just entirely too dense in light of the surrounding properties. The applicant has shared that they were not willing to waver on density and that this development could not move forward if it were not approved at 73 units. And because of that, I came in today planning to deny this case. However, before this case was heard, I was approached by the applicant that they want to look at less density for this site. And because this is the first time that I've even had that brought to my attention, I would like to give them an opportunity to talk with the residents and see if there is some level of compromise on that density to get something that's more fitting to the surrounding area. With that being stated, I do want to acknowledge some points made by the applicant, is that as the site being zoned commercially, and it just having access to Austell Road, that whatever is here is going to have some traffic impact on Austell Road. And if it's developed commercially, it could have even greater traffic impact than what is proposed. At NAC, at a neighborhood activity center, there could be a lot of varying uses which could bring that traffic impact down. However, as of today, the use to go there is not yet known. The applicant also recognized that there are about 40,000 cars that travel here on this site, and when I received a traffic impact analysis for this site, it showed that new development at 73 units would not modify the current the current level of service that's on that road. It's not the best, but it wouldn't modify it. So there is going to be some traffic impact, and it's going to be tough, as was acknowledged, to get in and out of that site. I mean, there's no access point for whatever development occurs to come further south and tie in there, or to tie into the other neighborhoods, unless they work with the Goss family to do so. And as was shared by the Goss family, your site is zoned future commercial, so at some point you would have to come back and also come in for rezoning, because we no longer developed under that land use designation. And it was also provided that the current GC in a NAC, or Neighborhood Activity Center, is not a fitting use, and we'd have to zone it for something. So it would be my encouragement, if we hold this case and let the applicant determine what's more fitting, that we see what can go here, because we can't keep it as is. And again, I'm more amenable to doing something that fits the area than not, and I'm not necessarily wedded to what was proposed at the Planning Commission, either at the 5 units per acre. I still think there's additional room for discussion. So it would be my suggestion today to hold this, which would be, I think, is the proper next step when we actually hear the case, not to continue it, but we consider that to be held. And I don't know if the time frame for that needs to be limited to 30 days. Does the time frame for this need to be limited for 30 days to hold an application?
No, it could be more if the board wants it.
Can I just say to hold the application without a time certain, or do I need a time certain?
Yeah, we do need a time certain.
Okay. Yeah, we can hold this for 30, well, why don't I talk to the applicant while you're here, so instead of me making this decision unilaterally, if we were to hold this, what would be a reasonable time?
You gotta make a motion.
Yeah. I would
Motion.
like to talk to the applicant before I make my motion. Yeah,
All right, I tell you what. Go ahead.
thank you. Yes, Kevin, if we were to hold this, what would be a reasonable amount of time for the applicant to sit down and meet with the community to see what another density could be proposed for this site?
30 days is
30
fine.
days is adequate?
Yes,
Okay.
it's more than adequate, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. So I move that we hold this case to the July zoning hearing.
We have a second? Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Board, the next case also has a companion special land use permit. Would it be the board's wish to hear these together and then make separate motions?
Sure.
Okay, I'll call them together then. Rezoning case Z29 of 2019, Corner Point Partners LLC. Request rezoning from NRC and R20 to NRC for the purpose of a retail and climate-controlled self-service storage facility in land lots 31 and 32 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Floyd Road, south of White Boulevard. Additionally, special land use permit number 6 of 2019, Corner Point Partners LLC. Request a special land use permit for the purpose of a climate-controlled self-service storage facility in land lots 31 and 32 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Floyd Road, south of White Boulevard. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to these two cases? Please raise your hands. And let the record show there's no one opposed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams. I'm with the law firm of Sams, Larkin, Huff, and Bally, and represent, in connection with these applications, Corner Point Partners, LLC. I've got with me today Mr. Gerard Gunthert and Mr. Grant Peterson of Corner Point, so the three of us will be available at the appropriate time. This is a rezoning, as Mr. Peterson mentioned, that it's appropriate for you to handle concurrently with the special land use permit, and that it deals with the same property and the same overall set of circumstances. The property being shown here, you may know it as the longtime home of Westside Baptist Church. Several years ago, I rezone the front portion of the property to NRC for purposes of the church utilizing electronic signage that was on there. They worked hand in glove with this current developer, CornerPoint, with respect to the Walgreens that is contiguous, as you can see, to the south of the property, and also a bank as well. The church itself has relocated, I believe, within the same sub-area of the county. They've been very good to work with, and what we have is a property, the split zone, NRC along the frontage and on the rear R20. The entirety of the site, as you might suspect, with long-term church use, is in institutional use under the future land use map. But everything around it's within the neighborhood activity center along the frontages on both sides of the Floyd Road corridor. What CornerPoint is requesting is a rezoning to NRC for purposes of being within the neighborhood activity center, which will include a bank, retail, restaurants, and flex retail and office components. And also as a part of that, you can see the larger building that is a climate control self-service storage facility that is below the height requirements or allowances under the zoning ordinance. Your staff has recommended approval. The Mableton Improvement Coalition has recommended approval. We adopt what they presented before the Planning Commission in terms of agreeing with them. We are fine with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval, obviously, but the particulars of it as well. One exception to that, the architectural renderings and elevations you're seeing of the retail are accurate. What you're seeing of the Regions Bank, we're going up the food chain, so to speak, with the Regions to get one that has a little less green on it than that. That's a corporate decision that we can't make, but what we've got is a architectural and landscaping oversight committee with the commissioner as the final arbiter, so that will take care of itself. The stakeholders in the area, the business owners in the area, we've established a dialogue early with them, met with Mableton Improvement Coalition probably within a week or so after, or maybe right before filing this. The latest letter we have is May the 23rd, stipulation letter. Concurrently with that, we submitted a full-blown traffic impact study to Ashley White with Cobb DOT, and the synchro files have been forwarded to her electronically as well. I'm glad to see Michael's on board today, but also shout out to Ashley White. She did a great job for you guys while she was here, and wish her the best of luck. If you look at this plan, you can also see right above, just orienting it up and down, right above the climate control self-service storage facility is a 3.49 acre tract of land. It's zone R20. It's been accepted, taken out of this. It's not part of the overall rezoning. We anticipate that someone will come back and develop it residentially. We're not going to presuppose what the density or the type of utilization, but it has contiguity to single-family detached on top of it, and then to the left of it, it has townhomes and condominiums. So that's not before you. That's been specifically taken out of the application. The stipulation letter covers the entire waterfront and does everything that your staff has requested, Mick has requested, and your Planning Commission has requested, and I could spend the entirety of my 10 minutes, but not having any opposition and realizing that I think you probably would like to get to lunch with the remaining agenda you have. I'll simply request that you follow your Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Anyway, I'm getting an evil eye from Commissioner Ott, so I know he wants me to hurry. So, but I'm here, glad to respond to any questions or address any concerns you may have. Actually, it's better to get an evil eye from him on this than Commissioner Cupid, so I'm happy with that.
I think we're happy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Sure, Robin, absolutely. Come on up.
Good morning. I'm sorry to be delaying the my own trip to lunch. My name is Robin Meyer, and I'm with the Mableton Improvement Coalition. I didn't plan to speak in opposition. I didn't raise my hand, but I was a little confused by one of Garvis's statements that had to do with the Regions Bank. It was our understanding from the outcome of the Planning Commission hearing that we did have agreement that the rendering, or something similar to the rendering that we provided for the Regions Bank, which has a white canopy or neutral colored canopy rather than the extraordinarily bright green canopy that was provided by the applicant. It was our understanding that we had agreement to use that alternative white or neutral canopy. And so we would ask that in any approval of this application that you specify that. Thank you. And I have a copy of it here that I can provide.
Sure, if you'd pass that around. Commissioner Ott.
Commissioner Cupid, just so you know, because I'm going through the same thing with Regions Bank on the zoning that we approved at Marketplace. I know that Robin would like us to say that this is what has to go there, but I can tell you that we can't.
Right.
But Garvis, I would ask your help in making the point to the food chain or whatever you wanted to refer to it as. You now have 2 commissioners, and it only takes 3 for Regions Bank to get the message that it doesn't work with what they're trying to push on Cobb County.
We understand
they
that.
They got one on Johnson Ferry with all the green, and it's not acceptable. And like I said, I'm going through it right now at Marketplace. Commissioner Cupid's obviously going to be going through it with this. And so now you have 3. So you just need to get the message across that they're going to have to come up with something better.
We have, and that's the reason we got the extra level of the architectural landscaping oversight committee, and then they added a subset of that with the commissioner being the, so it's clear from planning commission that the Lufkin, Texas prototype will be the one that is preferred by the county here. And
I think what the commissioner's saying is the next time they come back with this, they may not get it approved.
Oh, I understand that. I mean,
Okay,
it's clear to my client and me,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman. I ain't
no,
problem
I
with
just-
that.
Well, one of the things that we've been hearing at ours, just for Commissioner Cupid's benefit, is that what has been acceptable, or what we keep telling them that we want over on Marketplace, they're like, oh, well, that's 80s. Well, I don't care what decade it is, it's a whole lot better than all the glass and the green. And so they need to kind of just get the point, like the chairman's saying, don't bring it back any future zonings, and they're gonna have to come up with something better, because I don't think this board's gonna improve it moving forward.
Well, I understand that, but we're not under contract with the regions. Our discussions within there, they're very much committed to the site, Commissioner. I want to add, since I truncated my presentation, but we've also agreed to stipulations and conditions where anytime there's an industry prototype with respect to the restaurant or a bank, that we'll always take or choose, to the extent we can do so, the more neutral colors, and the four-sided nature, particularly obviously of the front components. So there's layers to the stipulations, I think, to give everyone.
Yeah, I was just
relief.
more about the Regions Bank,
I
because
understand.
you brought it up.
I did, because I didn't want you to think I was, being anything close to disingenuous.
We would never think that.
I know that. It's an
Okay.
irrebuttable
Anybody
presumption.
else? I think that's good.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
sir. Seeing none, Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, thank you. Want to thank the Mableton Improvement Coalition for working with the applicant. I was a bit surprised to come here today and see no opposition, so we certainly have come a long way from when this application was initially presented. I would like to move that we approve the zoning application with the only modification or emphasis will be on a condition that the district commissioner approve final building elevation with respect to material, color, and elevation. And that will help cover the issues that Commissioner Ott has referred to.
So I think what we'll do
So
is,
that so my motion, excuse me, is to approve Z26 with that additional stipulation, subject to all planning commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict, and all of their staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Z29.
Commissioner, Z29.
Yes, Z29, excuse
Okay,
me.
so we have a second discussion?
Yep.
Call the question. And now let's do the SLUP.
Okay, I move that we approve SLUP 6.
Okay, any discussion? Call the question?
Subject to the same conditions of Z29.
Okay, so we called the question already, so it's passed 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners,
Thank you. Okay, moving on to regular and Z35, right?
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z35, James Richardson requests a rezoning from R20 and GC to R20 for the purpose of a single-family house in land lot 110 of the 20th district. The property is located on the north side of Ivy Lane, west of Cobb Parkway. Is the applicant present? The record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z35? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's put consent.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Jim Richardson, the owner of the property in question, 5030 Ivy Lane in Ackworth. It came to my attention that part of this parcel of land was zoned general commercial and the remainder zoned R20 residential. I was asked to come before the Board of Planning and Commission to have it completely zoned R20 residential as it should have been all along. It's a single-family residence in a neighborhood of single-family residents, so I think R20 is certainly the appropriate zoning request.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody in opposition? I didn't see any, so Commissioner Gamble.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And what wasn't said is that the building that sits at the rear of this parcel is currently being used as a residential unit. So that's kind of what drove this into. There's two. Yes, there's not just one. I'm kind of in agreement with what the Planning Commission recommended, and essentially what they said is there's a second electrical meter needs to be removed by December 31 of 2019 in order to make it a single meter for the purpose of treating this property as a single-purpose property, which would be consistent with the R20. And then also only one lease should exist for the two homes, and that the single lease has to be related to related persons, and then also staff comments and recommendations not in conflict.
So you want to make a motion to that effect?
So I'll make a motion to that effect.
Have a second? Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
That was easy.
And Mr. Richardson, I believe you just set a record for the fastest zoning case in the history of Cobb County.
Of District 1.
All right, we're on to Z39 now, I believe.
Okay, rezoning case Z39, Duncan Land Investments LLC, request rezoning from R20 to R15 for the purpose of a single-family subdivision in land lot 377 of the 16th district. The property is located on the northeastern side of Ebenezer Road at Shaw Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z39? That one, Jason? Let the record show there's one person opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm trying to find my glasses. I got where I can't see without them anymore. Good morning, Board of Commissioners and Chairman. For the record, my name is Richard Duncan. I am the applicant requesting rezoning for Z39 from R20 to R15 for a single-family residential neighborhood off of Ebenezer Road, consisting of approximately 3 acres. And to the south of the property across Ebenezer Road is an R20, and to surrounding the property is also an R20, but to the east of the property is an R20, which is an open space community. And in the open space community, you know, it allows to be able to put a higher density in a neighborhood of that caliber. They got set aside on the opposite side of the property. The lots which has joined me, though, are the 7 lots, and every one of them range from like, there's probably an average like 13,000 square foot per lot, which I actually did the calculation of all those lots together, which worked out to, just those lots alone, worked out like a 3.1 unit per acre. We know the density overall is under 2 acres in the subdivision, so, but I did want to make that aware that the lots that do adjoin me are smaller than the lots that I am requesting under R15. In my original mail out, I did mail out a thing stating to have a meeting with the residents that did join me, so they would be able to have address any issues or concerns they might have. And the issues and concerns, pretty much what we've heard all day today, is density. One of mine, where they asked for one of the ladies that was concerned, and she actually called and emailed me last night. We've already addressed her issue. Was her property does back up to the detention pond facility. And originally, when she asked me what type of fencing we was going to put around the pond, I told her it would be a black vinyl fencing, and that was not adequate for her. But I told her that that was what was required by the county because of maintenance reasons. But I did tell her that we would put along the border property, an additional privacy fence to be able to screen her property from the detention pond, and also some screening. Also, there was concerns about the draining, which Dave Braden has already been in contact with the residents also, and some of those issues have already been addressed and taken care of, and I told them that they would be addressed during the planning standards. And then also the traffic, the other one was the traffic, which we've heard a lot of today, as this is at a kind of an awkward intersection where my road is coming in at, and there was concerns about traffic there. But I did tell them that they wanted like a red light or more stop signs there, and I told them that I was not under the authority to be able to give any direction in that, that would have to be something that come later down the road. Also, after listening to their concerns, I pondered on it a day or two and when I did my stipulation, I did tell them I would request, that some I was request today also to put a 25-foot front setbacks in lieu of the 35 front setbacks and 40-foot rear setbacks in lieu of the original 30-foot setbacks. That way would pull the houses farther from the neighborhood residents, which would allow them more of a buffer between the new homes going in there, which there's actually under the proposed 7 lots, there's only actually 2 lots that will be adjoining the adjacent subdivision. So, but I did agree to that. Also, I told them I would, in my stip number 10, I agreed to put a 6-foot privacy fence along Hampton Oaks subdivision. And in stip 11, if the pond were to be a concrete pond wall, anything above the ground would be either facaded with brick or stone. And also in stip 12, I agreed to put a landscape screening in front of the pond facing Hampton Oaks property line. Anything that faced, any detention pond that faced them, I would put additional screening on there. Also, something that was actually even brought up at the Planning Commission was there possibly needing a line of sight on this property, and that has been addressed. We addressed it from the word go. When we originally proposed this back several months back, we was going to do some 6 lots on a R20 with a private road, but we thought we was going to acquire this Mr. Hood's property, which was next door, so we withdrew it, but he since then didn't want to sell the property. But we've been meeting with him. He was at the meeting that night also about the line of sight, and we've been discussing. He's agreed to do the line of sight, but we wanted, before he moved forward with everything we agreed to do on the line of sight, that the Cobb County DOT is actually in process of doing a sidewalk improvements through there, and he wanted them to be discussed what they're going to do there before he gave me exactly what he wanted to do there. But I do have here with me also the actual line of sight that is going to be required. It's not a very large line of sight that's needed. Adjacent to my property right here is just a little over 12-foot section there. It runs approximately 151 feet long to nothing. So it's just a little sliver that it will be needed as a side easement to be able to do a left turn out of the subdivision. Also, I know the staff has recommended approval with a maximum of 6 lots, and so has the Planning Commission, and I'm asking for your approval today for Z39. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak in support? So those in opposition?
Mr. Chairman of the Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is James Kutzman. I'm a resident of the Hampton Oaks subdivision, which was mentioned before, immediately adjacent to it. I'm also a member of the Hampton Oaks Association Board. Back in November, Mr. Duncan applied for a variance for this property. He was going to put in 6 lots at an R20, which is the current zoning for that property. We expressed our concern in a letter addressed to you all on November 26th regarding the setbacks, make sure the setbacks were appropriate, detention pond issues, and the private road and its impact on the traffic and safety at the corner of that property. The applicant at the time withdrew the variance request. The applicant then applied for a zoning change to R15 and asked for 7 lots, including a public road as opposed to the private road. Just an aside, the zoning for our subdivision, the Hampton Oaks, is R20 with the open space proviso, which was approximately 4 acres set aside. So that was the reason for the continued R20 OSC. And I don't think it would be fair to carve out part of the subdivision. It has to be viewed as a total. On May 15th, we did send a letter into to Chairman Boyce and Commissioner Burrell, expressing our concerns, being the fact 4 major points. The zoning was not consistent with the surrounding area, which is all R20. The setbacks, we wanted to make sure the setbacks were appropriate. The detention pond had an issue regarding easements, and also the fact that it would be using the detention pond currently in Hampton Oaks as a receptor for whatever come out of their detention pond has to go into our detention pond. So we had issues with that, how it would get there, easements and what have you. Last but not least is the traffic situation. The applicant has submitted a letter of stipulation which addresses some of the concerns, and he went through those regarding especially the detention pond, the easement, and the routing for the piping. The county also has some recommendations and conditions placed on it by the zoning department and the other departments, Department of Transportation included. This was passed by the Planning Commission back at the last meeting. We have met with the Stormwater Management group to discuss the situation. We discussed the fencing, landscaping, the easements, the need to have a different easement than there is out there now. We also would have a direct pipe from their detention pond into our detention pond, and so we feel that situation is being worked on and will be done as part of the plan review. The zoning that is recommended by the Planning Commission is for an R15 zoning with a limit, though, of 6 lots. And this would allow it to be somewhat consistent with the other density of the other subdivisions in the area, and we would not, if it is limited to 6, we can certainly live with that. The biggest concern is the traffic situation. The corner, if I could have that diagram for a minute. No, the overall, just the site map. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. The corner there on Shaw Road, turning onto Ebenezer, is a nightmare. Trying to make a left-hand turn with the traffic that comes up from the northwest down north, from the northwest down on Ebenezer. Ebenezer is now almost a main thoroughfare. Shaw Road is kind of an auxiliary to Sandy Plains, and so the traffic there is very heavy. Trying to make a left-hand turn left-hand turn or right-hand turn, for that matter, is a nightmare. Where his road coming out would be right across the street from Shaw Road. So whether sight lines are an issue, turning into and out of that subdivision it will be an issue because of the existing traffic patterns already, the speed and the heavy amount of traffic already on Ebenezer, and the Shaw Road problem. There's also a curve, which is a curve and a rise that comes up from Ebenezer to Shaw Road, and that's it'd be the other direction, which really does create a sight problem. So we would ask that, in particular, the traffic situation be thoroughly examined by the Department of Transportation to evaluate all things and make sure that there are safe conditions out there, whatever it would take, whatever remedial steps would take, not just the sight line, but to look at the traffic pattern to make sure that left-hand turns, right-hand turns are thoroughly analyzed in terms of what accidents might happen out there. With that, I'll conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other voices? Commissioner Burrow.
Yes. I'm going to start with Mr. Kutzman's comments on the traffic. I live off of Shaw Road and go through this intersection practically every day, and it is a nightmare, as you stated. My District 3 engineer, in the absence of Ashley and Michael taking over, and I went out to the site with Mr. Kutzman last week to determine the site distance from the entrance, which will be aligning up to Shaw Road, and we'll have a stop sign. Ebenezer will be free-flowing traffic, no four-way stop. So currently there is not the site distance. It's not required. I mean, what's required is not there. So Mr. Duncan will have to get an easement from Mr. Hood next door to meet the required site distance. And if that is not obtained, then his entrance will be a right-in, right-out only. And I would ask DOT to work on that during site plan review and see what's the safest, best way to go there. Also, I'm requesting staff to do a traffic study for a potential signal there, not because of this development, because 6 lots is not going to require a signal, but the traffic has gotten a lot heavier in this area with development on Ebenezer and Shaw Road and Blackwell. So once school goes back in session, we're looking at doing a traffic study to see if a signal is warranted at this location, because one has not been done in several years, and there's been a lot of increase in development and the traffic. It's all backed up there now. So, and from the light at Ebenezer and Blackwell. So, I think that addresses the traffic issue as far as the stop signs and right in, right out only if he doesn't meet sight distance. I know that Mr. Braden has discussed the drainage and detention pond, and I think everybody's in agreement on that. We also have a sidewalk project in the works that will be starting, I think, this fall, hopefully, from Ebenezer and Mary Drive, across Blackwell, down to Maybreeze. And depending on whose project starts first, if this is approved, we may have to do a fee in lieu of, because it needs to be, contiguous once we start our sidewalk project. However, if Mr. Duncan, he'll be required to put sidewalks on his frontage, on Ebenezer. So he will have to meet the DOT standards, the 5 feet wide drainage and curb and gutter and everything that will be required if he does them himself. So I guess that will be determined in plan review as well, the sidewalks. But they are required. So, if there's no other questions, or I'm ready to make a motion.
All yours.
Okay. I would make a motion that we approve Z39 to R15, subject to a maximum of 6 lots, and all will be required to be a minimum of 15,000 square feet. The stip letter for Mr. Duncan dated May 27th, 2019. Home elevation submitted by Mr. Duncan on file, and applicant to purchase an easement from Mr. Hood for site distance, and if he doesn't, then he'll be required to make the entrance a right-in, right-out only with the stop sign there. District Commissioner to approve final site plan and elevations, and all Planning Commission staff recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And I would like to also mention that this is LDR, which is allowable up to 2.5 units per acre, but with the 6 lots, he will be under 2 units per acre and more in line with the surrounding properties.
Have a second? A second. The only question I had is, I got over 35 letters initially opposing this. But
Right.
I'm being assured by you, Mr. Kutzman, that these concerns have been addressed by your neighbors?
Yes, and also for the record, I'd like to enter this petition from Hampton Oaks. There were 30 letters dated May 12th, was when this was submitted.
Okay.
And then after working with Mr. Duncan and Stormwater Management and DOT, Mr. Duncan's stip letter of May 27th, which is entered for the record, addressed those concerns.
Okay, great. That's terrific. Okay, any other questions?
Can he ask a question? I don't think you can, Richard.
Okay, we're good. I'll call the question. Passes 5-0.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say final site plan and elevations to be approved by?
Yes, she did. She's shaking her head.
I do. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have a great afternoon.
You too. All right, Z41, I believe, right?
46.
We're gonna do 41 or 46 first? Okay, well, we moved one from consent to the regular.
And that's Z46.
All right. Okay, so we'll do 46, we'll do 41 first and 46?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I was getting some chirping over here, like I was out of sequence.
Rezoning case Z41, Kenneth Morty requests a rezoning from R20 and GC to CRC for the purpose of automotive repair in land lot 34, the 18th district. The property is located on the east side of Powell Drive, south of Veterans Memorial Highway. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed rezoning case Z41? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Afternoon.
Board of Commissioners, Adam Rosen, Sam's Larkin, Huff and Valley here. This afternoon during the lunch hour for Z41, which I understand the magnitude of that. The short answer is that this has been recommended for deletion to NRC by your Planning Commission. Those conditions from their recommendation, the Mableton Improvement Coalition's conditions and the conditions from our stipulation letter, which I know is a lot, combined to give you, I think, a good setup for following your Planning Commission's recommendation at neighborhood retail commercial. So I'll get to that, but I think that's the end result for you to get us quickly to lunch. This property is two separate parcels on Powell Drive. The address for both is 5777 Powell Drive. This is on the east side of Powell Drive, as you can see here, backing up to unimproved light industrial property, much different than the rest of the property on Powell Drive. It doesn't look like it, but this property all along Powell Drive is within a neighborhood activity center. For its existence, Powell Drive has been utilized much differently from what it looks like on the ground, and I know Commissioner Cupid's shaking her head because this is one that, an area that we've dealt with often for these types of uses, but this is within the neighborhood activity center. That's not entirely reflected yet on Powell Drive. You can see the more recent cases that we've handled going to NRC, and some I think that were rezoned to CRC, but still a lot left, like ours, split between R20 and general commercial. So still that transitioning from the code enactment in the 70s, and this property I think was actually built at that time as well. But the property to our rear zone light industrial, the residential property to our north is not used residentially, as you might imagine. It's automotive like our property always has been, and the properties along Powell Drive. Site plan is nothing too exciting for you. This is an as-built circumstances case. Essentially, we are proposing for the existing building to remain in its same footprint, same construction. We've worked with the Mableton Improvement Coalition to discuss how to make the building look better, and then that's resulted in painting, pressure washing and painting and rehabbing the building. The business has been used for automotive purposes, so not a significant amount of retrofitting will happen to the building, but it will certainly look better once it's through this process. The southern tract that we are improving is improved to allow for parking that's legal. For many years, it has been parking without paving, so we have volunteered to be committed to the parking standards of your code, which is improving that surface area to a hardened surface where they will have parking. Those areas where they will not have parking will be landscaped. Again, the use requested is for automotive repair, to include paint and body repair, not a significantly large business, up to 5 employees. There are a number of conditions and stipulations from my stipulation letter prior to the Planning Commission hearing, Mableton Improvement Coalition's conditions, and the Planning Commission recommendation, I think all sync together in the end. And I believe I can, with Robin's authority, state that we both are supportive of the Planning Commission's recommendation, and that Mableton Improvement Coalition is as well. Again, their history goes back beyond mine with working with the properties on Powell Drive, and I think what that gives us is a formula for how to get these properties out of non-conforming status, get them zoned. In this case, your applicant is not asking for you to waive any of the surface parking standards, any of the curb and gutter requirements, which largely don't exist already, any of the landscaping requirements. We are proposing to have the landscape enhancement strip. So all of those conditions that either your code already requires or that we can volunteer to deal with the automotive uses of Powell Drive that we have seen historically become concerns for the Mableton Improvement Coalition for this area, we're volunteering to at least stipulate and require that they be a part of this. And you have some enforcement mechanisms to that as well. What the Planning Commission recommended is that the additional use for paint and body be subject to this board's discretion at a show cause hearing if there's any violations related to it. It's also stipulated in their recommendation that it be limited to this applicant only. So that's about as much limitation that we can put on it. If the applicant changes or if there's any violations related to it, instead of the concerns that we've had in the past where the violations of code enforcement get stuck in the court system, there's an extra layer in this case that we are agreeing to come here. So I think this is about everything we can do to put a property that has always been used this way. Powell Drive is expected, I would think, to be used this way in the future, but not necessarily an inappropriate use for this area. Ours and the others on Powell Drive do not, other than the R20s that have been commercial for their existence, do not adjoin residential properties. We have not heard from opposition in this case from others in the area that are opposed to this request. So because of that, we think we have put together, without asking for any exceptions, we've put together what is the way to bring this type of property into conformity, allow Mr. Morty's business to operate. Obviously, there are, and this is one of those that does have a code enforcement case pending, but we are trying to come up with a way to get past that, to get this into compliance and to give you a mechanism in the future if something else comes up, because that has been the concern here in this area. So your staff analysis recommended denial. The original request was for CRC because of the additional use of paint and body. That is part of this business. That is part of the businesses on Powell Drive. Because of that, we think it's an appropriate addition, but keeping within your land use plan to delete it to NRC. But other than that, your staff analysis is supportive of this type of use, is supportive of our request, and you can see that in some of their comments, other than their actual recommendation because of the CRC request originally. But again, we're here requesting that you follow your Planning Commission recommendation, which is a little bit different, which deletes to NRC. You can see that it also limits the uses, I think, to just 6 total uses, but the ones that are appropriate for this property and for this area. Again, the other conditions with that, that really put the burden on the applicant to comply with everything that your code requires and then some. So with that, we hope that you will follow your staff supportive points here, follow your Planning Commission recommendation to delete to NRC. Mr. Morty is here with us today. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosen. Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman. Question for you, Adam. Yep. Has the building already been pressure washed?
I do not believe so.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that in the stipulation. Okay.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Powell Drive has got to be one of the most challenging strips in the district. And as you can see depicted by the picture, there are some very intense automotive uses. And we have had multiple rezonings come in for Powell Drive over the years, and it limits my confidence whenever I have a zoning on Powell Drive, because we still end up having code enforcement and EPD out there on numerous occasions. But I do appreciate this applicant and working with the Mableton Improvement Coalition to address a lot of the issues there, and being flexible to provide for a show cause hearing, which is a new stipulation that I've had on one of these properties. So it shows, I would think, some level of their confidence in adhering with the stipulations that that are provided, that if any of them were violated, that they would be before the board. I'm going to have to take some time and talk to the community and the Planning Commission, because I know that the exceptions made for this use only in NRC allows us to moderate some of the conditions on site, but this is a unique exception for NRC. And I don't know how the condition of Powell Drive ever gets ameliorated if such intense uses continue to be facilitated in NRC. But this application, as provided, does help us to address some significant challenges out there. And I know NRC is certainly much more welcome than any other intense land use provision or zoning provision. And the stipulation that provides for this use and this user only is helpful to be able to address future development of the site. So with that, I'm going to move that we delete this application to NRC per the Planning Commission recommendations, subject to their conditions, and also subjected to the letter provided by the Mableton Improvement Coalition dated May 31st, 2019, with any of their conditions provided to stand that are not otherwise in conflict to Planning Commission recommendations, and also to the staff comments and recommendations, which are to be incorporated with this motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? One question. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, Z46 now.
A rezoning case Z46, ND William Inc. requests a rezoning from NS to O&I for the purpose of a child daycare center in land lot 160 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north side of Mars Hill Church Road, west of Ackworth West Road. The applicant is present. Earlier, there was one person here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Yes, right, just wait. Okay. First of all, where's the applicant? Okay, I have to have the applicant up first, okay? And then, ma'am, I need to have you sworn in as a witness. Okay, so that will be in the right sequence, and we'll be doing everything by the letter of the law here. So with that, ma'am, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, my name is Florence Oconta. This property is an Ackworth. Used to be a daycare center that closed for about, 7 months to a year. We are requesting zoning from, we're requesting rezoning to use it again as a daycare center. We're not looking to do any repairs on the outside, just on the inside, like painting, flooring, some landscaping on the outside. That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else in support, voices in support? Yes, sir.
I'm David Freeman with Remax Center. I represent the sellers here. And our goal was just simply it's our understanding that this was operated as a daycare under a special use permit. And so our goal was just to get it reinstated, or the application turned out to be rezoning to the appropriate zoning. So
Okay.
I'm here to say we're supporting.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, with that, finally, ma'am, now you can come up here. I appreciate your patience today.
Actually not here in opposition. What I am here for, I'm actually in favor of the staff recommendations. However, there has been some ongoing stormwater issues that include the daycare, and it stems back when the property actually was built. If you look at the drawing I have supplied here, you can see that stormwater, when the daycare was built, they allowed for a drain pipe to be piped underneath the road on Mars Hill Church Road. And that pipe comes out of a head wall onto my 3 acres, which is directly south of that across the street.
Could you show us where that is? I'm still looking for it on
So,
the map.
my property is this 3 acres.
Okay.
It's 3 acres.
And what-
The daycare
Oh, there's the
pipe
pipe,
is
okay.
here.
All right.
If you can see, it goes under the road.
Yeah.
There's no easement for that. And it just discharges onto my property. It's not being piped under the dirt. It just discharges at a head wall. To add insult to injury, on this side of Ackworth Due West, the stormwater or DOT allowed for a concrete drain pipe with no easement to discharge all of the water from Ackworth Due West. And this water, both of these waters meet back here. My issue is I've been wanting Cobb County to either pipe the water to the back of the property, because what has happened over time is it is eroding. In some of these areas of where the water is being drained back here, it is 60, 70 feet wide. On this drainage issue, it is now consuming the fence, the property line fence between me and this neighbor. On over here from this drainage discharge point, there are areas that are 60 feet wide, depending on the amount of rain that comes. And back over here, if you stand in this ditch, it's way above my head.
This is actually a separate issue. Some ways. Why isn't it?
So to add insult to injury, the county is now proposing a roundabout, which I can
It's upside, I think it's upside.
So if you look at the roundabout proposal, this is the daycare. This is the edge of my property, so it's mainly affecting my property. So what I've been told by the higher-ups at Cobb County was that there was not enough money in Splosh for Splosh to continue this back here to correct the stormwater discharge back here. And I also was told that they didn't have enough money to pipe the discharge back here to control the erosion. And then I asked if there was any other money available through the county, in which I was told the Board of Commissioners would not approve anything.
Okay, I think before we get too far afield here, I need to get DOT up here for a second. If we could go back to the previous map. Nope, yeah, there you go. Where the stormwater goes under the road from the daycare center. See that? Was the intent, yes, was the intent for the drainage to go down that street, that creek bed? That's why they put the pipe there?
Yes.
But is it doing that?
I would assume it is, yes.
Well, she's saying it's not.
The creek bed, the actual creek head is here.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the contour lines here, okay? And I'm also looking at the color lines. So Dave, I'm just trying to figure out here if this is an issue that can be handled at this hearing. It seems to be a separate issue for me, but I get your concerns, okay? I'm not trying to minimize them. But I think the question I have here is that was the intent of this pipe to be directed into the stream bed that's on the map? Yeah, okay, so I'm getting a 1,000-yard look here.
I'm not sure I can answer that question for you.
But it seems pretty obvious to me that was the intent.
When it was built, I'm sure it was.
All right,
yeah.
so
There-
her
there was a-
concern is
there-
that
There was a low point from one side to the other, and I'm
Right.
sure when DOT, whenever they created this road, they had to move drainage from one side to the other, but they're
Okay.
not gonna extend it outside the right of way.
All right, I get that point, but I'm gonna have to say that I don't think this is an issue you can handle in the zoning case, okay? But it is an issue that she needs to address with her commissioner here, because her concern is that the intent of the pipe, because of something, natural events or otherwise, is not doing the intent. So, we're gonna be addressing the zoning issue here, but because you brought this to our attention, I'm gonna have Commissioner Gamble's office, talk to you about this collateral issue here that you have about your drainage on the pipe.
Well, I addressed it, just for the record, with Mr. Weatherford, and I've also met with Mr. Ozak. So I have tried to address
Okay,
it.
well, Mr. Weatherford's not here anymore, and Ms. Gamble is, so I'm sure that, since it's now on video, we know it's an issue. And, but this is not something the board can address with the zoning issue.
No, I just wanted to make it on
Okay,
record
all right.
because it's going on deaf ears.
All right, so again, what I would ask you to do is get with Ryan over here and set up an appointment with Commissioner Gamble, since you haven't spoken to her yet, and let's see if maybe perhaps we can have a better outcome this time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Chairman. This daycare, just for a little history, was actually built in 1982, so more than likely the stormwater and sewer and piping was done at that time. I'm going to make my motion to approve what was provided at the Planning Commission recommendations. I would like to make one additional recommendation to what the Planning Commission made, was that no electronic signage will be allowed.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, let's go into the OB. Hold our hearings on those.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. The only other business item to hear today is item number 30, which is to consider a settlement of litigation for David Pearson Communities Incorporated regarding rezoning case Z90 of 2015. The property is located on the northwest side of Sandy Plains Road, north of Ross Road, in land lot 737 and 776 of the 16th District. By way of background, the applicant's application for rezoning from R20 and R30 to RM8 for a 54-lot residential subdivision was deleted by the Board of Commissioners on November 17, 2015 to RA5, subject to numerous conditions. The applicant filed a lawsuit in Superior Court challenging the Board of Commissioners' decision. And prior to the case going to trial, meetings and discussions occurred between the applicant and the District Commissioner regarding this case, and a proposed agreement was formulated, which is attached in the item. Just see Kevin Moore's letter dated April 18, 2019. The applicant is suggesting to rezone the property to RA6 for 41 lots, which could be either attached or detached. The current zoning district of RA5 would allow 34 lots. The Board of Commissioners' 2015 decision is attached for your review. The staff would ask the Board of Commissioners to conduct a public hearing and consider these settlement of litigation. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business number 30? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let the record show there's 4 people opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
We'll find out here. Was anyone here in favor other than the applicant? Oh, you are, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
I do know about Ms. McMurray, so I'll make sure I reserve
No, that's
some
fine,
time.
I just want to make sure we're fair here.
Sure, thank you. I need a little of that.
If you're looking for sympathy, you're talking to the wrong people.
Wrong crowd, isn't it? No problem.
Kevin, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm here to present a proposed settlement of litigation, which you don't see too often, for this property. It's 6.8 acres located on Sandy Plains Road, just northeast of its intersection with Scuffle Grit, which is a signalized intersection. Some people know that intersection as Publix is located there. A Quick Trip was located there. Now it's a car wash. Also across the street is a former Rite Aid drugstore location. This proposal, I kind of want to walk through what we had proposed and then what is being proposed now. Previously, what had been proposed, as Mr. Peterson stated, was a rezoning to RM8 for a total of 54 homes here for an age-targeted development. Through the process, what we have brought forward, though, is a proposal for RA6 at 41 homes. So a significant reduction from 54 to 41, given the settlement aspect of this proposal. In addition, we have reached out to community members that have been engaged before, and you'll hear from one of them. I also want to make sure Just so Ms. Stone has it for the record, the adjacent subdivision, which is called Eastbrook subdivision, you can see it on the top of your screen there, the lots on the top of your screen, is Eastbrook subdivision, and this is from their president of their HOA expressing their support for this proposed settlement plan as well. So I just want to hand that in so that you know that that's there and a part of our presentation, what we went about and going out to the community with this proposed plan. Turning to the plan. Part of this settlement letter involved a little bit of something different, and that is this plan shows an RA6 site plan for development for 41 homes. These are attached. RA6 allows both attached and detached homes. This is proposing 41 homes. Those are attached, so they're more like townhomes, but they're attached. When you have attached RA6 homes, a certain set of setbacks apply. And this plan represents a proposed site plan that does not have variances because it's attached and it complies with all the rules for RA6 as attached. But we've also submitted, and he's going to turn to that, a plan that shows the same number of homes, 41 homes. Now, these homes are detached homes, and this looks much more like an age-targeted community, which is what is being proposed. The homes, though, have been detached instead of attached. And there's 41 homes, but now, because of the rules that apply to detached RA6, there are setback variances, so this would need to be zoned. If it was approved, it would need to be approved to the detached plan so that it provides for the setbacks that are from the homes to the private street and the space between the homes. However, the perimeter setbacks do not change. Those are the same as it relates to our relationship to the neighbors and our relationship to the street. Those do not change. But once you detach them, that's where some internal setback variances are required. And we've seen that before in other locations where we have detached a product and it results in those same types of variances, but you're not using that to increase density, you're just using it to provide for detached homes. And what we did is we went to the surrounding community members that we had been working with from way back in 2015 and gave them the same thing. Said, here is a detached plan, here's an attached plan of 41 homes that we have proposed for settlement. We've sat down with them, both the Eastbrook subdivision, and then Ms. McMurray will also speak to you and explain what we were proposing and why, and resoundingly to a person. And that's what the Eastbrook Homeowner Association letter says, and what I believe Ms. McMurray will say is that the community prefers the detached plan. And we do too. By detaching the homes, there's a better price point and value that we can attain, and the community supports the detached plan for that reason as well as others. Also, just want to point out a few things about this proposed site plan and make sure I reserve enough time. Again, we are observing the setback of 40 feet from Sandy Plains Road, where we have what will be an impressive landscaping and frontage treatment involved along Sandy Plains that will go the entire length. We have aligned our entrance to Hasty Road. Hasty Road serves as an access point for the crossings of East Cobb, which is a suburban condominium development, one of the very first quads that we became known as for an age-restricted development directly across the street. We've aligned our entrance with Hasty Road. Our access is limited in that left outs are prohibited. So we have a left-hand turn lane that's already in existence. So we have a left-hand turn lane in, right out, and right in. Hasty Road is a full access, so what that's doing is eliminating a conflict at that particular location. And that's what, if you look back at the 2015 DOT comments, as well as the comments from the Board of Commissioners at that time, there was direction to provide this access here, lining up with Hasty Road, as opposed to where we had it previously here. In addition, what we've provided are buffers adjacent to Eastbrook that are included within our stipulation letter that they are aware of, as well as an open space park in the middle. Again, we've arrived at this place after a series of discussions. We think this represents a fair, well-balanced, reasonable resolution, and one that we would urge you to, and respectfully request that you approve. I can answer any questions that you may have, but I want to make sure I give Ms. McMurray, who was given her time graciously here today, to speak also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And she is not a property owner of this property.
Ma'am?
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Beverly McMurray. I'm the current president of the Briarwood Homeowners Association. And in 2015, I spoke opposed. But this plan addressed all of the concerns that we had. We no longer have an underground retention pond, which people would tend to forget about, and the problems would accrue. It has an above-ground retention so that they would monitor it. It's much less dense. The entrance lines up with Hasty Road. It just has the open area with amenities, and that's how they were able to get less, spread the houses out a little more. It's a little more space, I think, between the houses and around. We do, as Kevin stated, we do support the detached. The precedent along there, except for the quadruplexes, is all for detached homes. Briarwood is in the city of Marietta. This would probably fit in the city of Marietta. It's very similar to Briarwood in terms of the spacing, so we're comfortable with it. Our main concern is it sets a precedent along with Briarwood about what can be built in all of that area to the left of it, which is a huge area owned by very few people that could be assembled, who knows, at any time. And whatever these precedents are, will back right up to Briarwood. So we do support this. So are there any questions?
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate your time today. Anybody else in support? And with that, voices in opposition.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Chuck Vershek. I'm a resident of the crossings of East Cobb across the street from the proposed development, and I'm a representative of our Homeowners Association Board. They've asked me to speak to this today. Basically, we are in favor of the detached plan. However, we have concerns about the traffic situation where the entrance is going right into Hasty Road. The DOT back in 2015, I think, stated that there's 26,500 units of automobiles traveling that stretch of highway. We think that's probably up to 30,000 now. And we would just recommend that the DOT take another look at this. Our recommendation, we know it's probably an extreme one, we'd like to see the entrance to this community be on Ross Road. Obviously, trying to acquire property there has not been successful, but we feel this would be the safest entrance instead of Sandy Plains, which is an arterial street in Cobb County. Other than the traffic concerns, basically our homeowners association is in favor of the detached plan. We just want to go on record for that, for the traffic concerns.
Okay, I appreciate that, sir. Thank you, sir. Any other voices? Sir, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Board Member, for allowing me to speak on this meeting. I will echo the same feeling what gentleman before me had it. Primarily three concerns. Our neighborhood, I live right behind the neighborhood in Eastbrook. We do recommend a detached home. We don't prefer attached home because that's not within the intensity and density of the neighborhood. Second thing we oppose, as it is proposed, is current zoning is R20 and R30, and obviously R60 is going to be more dense, which is contrary to the zoning principle and intent. So that's one of the opposition we have. Most opposition we have is a intersection at the Hasty Road and the subdivision. I live right behind in the subdivision. Two family members of my own family had accident because it is hard to make a U-turn. When we come out of our subdivision, we have to make a U-turn at the Hasty Road, and that's pretty dangerous. The reason is because the line of sight at the previous traffic light at the scuffle grid is not enough. it's almost that the vehicle just comes into your eyes about the time you are making either the left turn or U-turn. So that's kind of a danger we are posing here. Having a more resident there, more people traveling. At a moment, at a given worst situation, there will be 6 people trying to make the turn. 2 people trying to go left, 2 people trying to make a U-turn, and 2 cars traveling at 45, 50 mile an hour. So that's where we also recommend that Cobb DOT take consideration of the traffic situation. If possible, put a traffic light. I mean, there used to be 3 traffic lights 10, 12 years ago. I've been living there 20 plus years. Unfortunately, they moved 1 traffic light. If they can put the traffic light here, it will be safe for all of us. So I want to go on record that as it is proposed, we need to do the traffic evaluation and consider the zoning according to the current zoning, which is, I believe, is R15 around the neighborhoods. But we love to have the neighborhood with the residents, definitely.
Sir, would you mind stating your name for the record?
My name is Navneet Patel.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I live in the Eastbrook subdivision, which is right behind Eastbrook.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Patel.
all.
See no other voices? John? Staff recommendations?
Mr. Chairman, Board, for settlement litigations, the staff normally does not make a recommendation to accept it or reject it. We just ask you to consider it and then let the board discuss what they want to do.
Okay, that's normally, so. That's your comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's a nice conservative one. Commissioner Burrow.
John, from when this was originally zoned in 15, do we have DOT comments on that entrance after the fact, up to now? Because I didn't see any, but.
The DOT comments are in the original zoning case, Commissioner Burrow.
Right, but that was 4 years, almost 5 years ago.
They did not have any comments for this new revised plan.
Okay.
What happened to the traffic light? Why they move it? I mean, it's almost impossible to get one installed, and now we're just moving them? Is it the same criteria to move them?
There is no traffic light here planned, Mr. Chairman.
But he said there was one there some years ago.
No.
There's never been a traffic light there.
Not here. Down on Scuffle Grid, there's a traffic light.
Oh, a scuffle grid,
Yeah.
yes, right. Okay,
Okay, Michael, I'm gonna ask you to come up next. Is it my turn?
yeah, sure, you got it, it's all yours.
I know this hasn't been reviewed since the original zoning in 2015, but would that be decided in site plan review as far as if the entrance needs to be changed?
Well,
Or do you see a conflict there if it's a right in, right out, and a left turn in only?
yeah, well, I mean, with it being restricted to right in, right out, I don't see, I mean, any additional conflicts, I mean, than what's there today for Hastings. I mean, we could do a traffic warrant analysis for that intersection, but I would pretty much think it would not be warranted. I mean, with it being,
Yeah.
a low volume side road.
Okay. I think we're probably gonna need to
Okay.
eventually do a study for that.
Yeah, we can do a signal warrant once school is back in
Okay.
this fall.
That would be good. I would recommend that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as Mr. Peterson mentioned, this is a settlement of litigation. And just for some history, when this came in originally, the applicant was asking for RM8, and the board deleted it to RA5. And of course, we were sued, and I had advised the applicant to bring an RA6 plan with no variances, and I would consider it with input from the neighbors and community. So it took several years, but they finally came up with an attached plan with no variances and a detached plan with the only variance being the distance between the homes. But the detached plan fits more in the community with the surrounding neighborhoods. And the neighbors for both subdivisions, Eastbrook and Briarwood, both supported that plan, and so did I. So, but we did want to show both because that was what was asked to be considered. So, the 3 houses that are there now that are vacant on this property that have been sitting there since this was zoned initially in 2015 have had code enforcement complaints, community complaints of rodents and vagrants, and one house is burnt out, and that whole parcel with the 3 homes on there is an eyesore for the area. The bank next door, directly right here in the city of Marietta, is vacant now. The Rite Aid across the street is vacant now. So, to me, this will be a definite improvement. They have a plan that is supported by the community, and I'm ready to make a motion. First, I know Mr. Moore submitted the letter from Eastbrook Homeowners Association for the record. And you heard from Ms. McMurray from Briarwood, but she also has an email to me and a letter to Kevin Moore in support that I'd like to pass to you for the record as well. And here we go. Those 2. One other thing. Mr. Moore, can you come back up? Because of this applicant's other properties, I would like to see if you would be agreeable to a reversion clause of 18 months to 2 years for either LDP or a lot building permit. I know what you're gonna say, but you know where I'm coming from too.
I do. I'm in a position where I cannot agree to that, a reversion in this instance. I wish I could. I wish I could, but I can't agree to it. If you were going to do one, and that's part of what you're gonna do, I would ask that it be the LDP issuance as opposed to building permit, because a building permit is issued only after development and only after a final plat has been approved and issued by Cobb County. So Cobb County's already stamped a document saying you're good, you're in compliance. To then have a reversion trigger after that, I don't even know that that's enforceable at that point. But I can't agree to it. I wish I could, but our underlying financial underwriting and doability for this project, I just can't agree to it. But I know where you're coming from.
Even a 24-month LDP?
If you were going to add it and do it, it would need to be that.
Okay,
If that's what, I just not in a position where I can agree to it.
don't do it. Can y'all just give me some feedback,
Yeah.
Lisa?
I can understand why you're doing it, but it took you so long to get here,
I know.
you know?
If I could offer somewhat to get to a certain place, we can agree that the existing structures, the existing homes on the property will be demolished, demo permits obtained through Cobb County and demolished within a certain time frame. We can do that to make sure that you have a clean place, a clean property. That will, we can do that, we can accomplish that, and that doesn't affect the underlying entitlement that I'm
Okay.
not agreeable to. That can be 90 days from today, something like that. I want to help us be there.
Well, I think that since you've done so much work to get where you are, there's no doubt in my mind that you're ready to do this.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah, so I
So
think,
are we.
I think if you just put the stipulation, I agree with, that's a great idea. Just put in the stipulation, it's got the existing structures have to be demolished within a certain number of days. Well, my guess is it'll happen sooner than that, and by the time we come to that time, you'll already be getting the building,
Okay,
the
so
building
90
permits.
days is adequate.
I think that's sufficient. That's,
Yeah.
we've done, I know the board has done that type of thing before with existing
We
structures.
can demolish in 90 days, that's not a problem.
Yes, we can.
I shouldn't say this, but can you go across the street to Sprayberry Crossing and demolish stuff?
No.
Correct, you
Okay,
should not say that.
strike that from the record,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
We're working on all angles. Thank you.
I hear you. Okay, I'm ready to make a motion. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the offer of litigation settlement for other business 30, subject to the stipulation letter from Kevin Moore dated April 18th, the letters from Eastbrook and Beverly McMurray for the record, maximum number of 41 units detached, and a maximum impervious surface of 45%, which is what is allowed in RA6. Final site plan and elevations be approved, and landscape plan be approved by district commissioner. Demolition of the 3 houses currently on the site within a 90-day period.
Does that include cleanup?
Pardon?
Does that include cleanup? If they demolish them, do they have to clean it up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Demolition and cleanup,
Mm-hmm.
all right, within 90 days.
Yeah, we don't want them left there. And all other staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
I'll second, I got a question.
Okay.
You said in there, you included the 2 letters. And we haven't seen those. Are there anything in either one of the letters that down the road staff could confuse? Because if they have requests or stipulations, you don't want them to be considered, right?
Well, they're supporting the stip letter that Kevin submitted
Right, both
and the
letters?
detached plan.
But both letters, okay, that's all. I was
One's a
asking.
letter, one's email.
Okay, all right,
Stating the same thing.
all right, that's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Call the question. Passes 5-0, and we're adjourned.